Ready to go live. We're live.
Woo!
We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of America Heals. This is a committed conversation that we're having to discuss some of the things that are going on in the world right now. We've been talking the last few episodes about some policy stuff, and something is emerging, I think, as we engage the holidays and into the inauguration, where we're seeing just a straight attempt to overthrow our government by the American right. Yes, you were, Zach. You were first. I want that to be known. For the record, Zach was our first major left guest who was ready to throw policy. Please check out that scope last week.
That was excellent.
That was good.
Also, we're on YouTube Live and we're on Periscope. Please, like and share this thing. Hello from Denver. I'm up here in Boulder County, so good to know we got some folks in the Front Range. But it seems like the tide is shifting, and since Christmas morning, we saw a bomb go off in Nashville. We have looked at a Republican Party that's caught up in. Is that the sound check?
That was me getting my pad ready for administration. Sorry, volume was up.
Right on.
It sounded working though, because obviously you heard it back through my.
I did. And Zach, yes, we will get to the comments and we'll have a chance to go there. But there's so much to talk about that's on the right wing, and so the title of the show is Dynamic Centrism, and what we are going to talk about tonight is a proactive, goal-centered approach. This is, I think, moving out of a left and right sort of sphere into something else where it's either forward or backward or stuck in the mud. And while Trump might have utilized the phrase drain the swamp during the last election, he certainly made the swamp 1,000 times worse. He just replaced some of the characters and brought in some of the muckiest people he could. And we're now just going to go through this transition, and we're seeing now threats to our system from this president and his people, and blatant silence when things are happening. For instance, this bombing that happened in Nashville, we know now that he was a 63-year-old guy who was wearing a MAGA hat on his social media page, if nothing else. And he ends up doing this on Christmas Day. And you got to think to yourself, there's a lot of reasons for mental illness and stuff like that to play out, but it's being egged on by this quasi fascist sort of touch thing where things are being said and unsaid. And then on top of that, we've been seeing things on our beloved Periscope, as it's now going to go away at the end of March. But we're seeing people really rise up in ways that are incredibly threatening, openly threatening to the Constitution, openly threatening to people's safety. And it's all coming from Trump supporters on the right. That's not to say that there aren't people from all perspectives that can go violent and over the line and extremist in different ways. But we're seeing a theme happening from what seems to be a very fascistic group of thinkers. Last piece I'll say as we do the intro here, the only way we get through this is this dynamic centrism, where we start getting back to work, where we start getting our bodies and our economies in shape. We start talking about health and fixing things, but we also start thinking about big time goals, because the time to move forward is now. Joe Biden won with an enormous majority, even though the smear campaign and the lie campaign has been in place. We're about to have a mandate for change, and that's something that they've tried to stop with this narrative. We got Jeff from the Central Time Zone, and we got Ace out there in the West and the East Coast, and we'll get all the updates from these guys. That's the kickoff to the show. I'm Marty, and I'll let these guys go. Jeff, Ace, hit it.
Well, I think I'm color commentary tonight. You do need to come back to me. We have a sponsor tonight, so at some point when we need a break, I've got a sponsor piece for you. I recovered with you the other day.
Nice.
And other than that, I've got as we need it. If we get to it, we can continue to push it. But I have a review of Democratic stances that are also popular. I think that's important. Good. And I've got a math wrap up. Anyone who knows me knows I like my spreadsheets. I like to touch the numbers, feel the numbers, and see them in hard ways. Do what ifs numerically instead of just thinking, well, is that possible? Is that not possible? And I think I have a number that I think will surprise a lot of people, and a possible answer for these people that like to talk about their dumps. So I'm ready to discuss their dumps.
So we'll put that on the docket. Jeff's got a discourse on dumps later.
I've got a dump talk, yes.
He's got a dump talk. I'll remember that. Thank you. All right, Ace, go for it, dude. You're coming in hot from Georgia. You got an election going on.
I'm coming in hot from Georgia.
You got hot news, too, from tonight. I've been running around. So.
I definitely want to start talking about, the first thing is Trump signed the COVID bill, which was obvious. Did he get $2,000 for everybody? No, obvious. But
did anything change?
No. This is the interesting part is he released a statement, which I'll show later and we'll read. And basically in the statement, for people that don't know how laws and bills are passed, people will read this and they'll go, oh, okay, he's still trying. But for people that understand how laws and bills are passed, we go, yeah, that doesn't exist. What he's saying in the statement does not exist. He basically wrote a statement where he said, I'm signing the bill, which would make it law, but I'm going to send a strongly worded message for them to redact all the things I don't like, and on and on and on, where we, the people that understand how things work, go, oh, you signed it, so it's law, and you can't change it. There's no take backsies on this. It's almost like Mitch McConnell. It kind of reminds me of when your kid is in the back of the car and he wants to also drive, and you hand them the fake steering wheel, and you're like, here you go, buddy. You can steer too. That's what Mitch McConnell did to Trump. He just said, just put some stuff in there. But we'll go over that. I'm in Georgia, and it is hot. I just got I'm not even joking. I got these today. One day, all of these.
Hold on. Can I make you the centerpiece? Let's go for it.
I'll start covering them up. And
Marty, try muting for a second. The hum was there for a second. I wanted to see if it was in yours, but
yeah.
I'm mute.
See, it dropped with him.
Yeah, it is yours.
It dropped with you.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, something sizzling. It's like your cord's going over a space heater or something.
But it's not. All right.
All you have is your headphone cord?
Yeah.
That's the only thing going into your computer?
Yes.
I don't know. Well, we'll check it out later. It's not like blinding. It's not deafening.
All
are
right.
You gonna make him the main squeeze?
I'm gonna try to remember how. Oops,
nope,
wrong one.
Wrong way.
So close.
Wrong.
Let's see. We make him solo
layout. This is my favorite. It says if Grinchy Joe Biden gets control of the U.S. Senate, Christmas could look a lot different next year. And it's very colorful.
He's got a boot on.
Oh my God.
He's got a. Oh, he does. Did they put a boot on him?
Yeah, they got a. He's got a broken.
Oh my God, they put a boot on him because of course they would.
Wow.
Don't let the radical Democrats defund the police, pack the courts, or pass socialized health care and the Green New Deal. Notice that they tie both Raphael and John Ossoff. In the back, it's more of the same. Say no, socialist. So that's one. Then I'm going to separate them, Democrat, Republican. So we got some good ones on Republicans. We got a vote. Let's see. This one is, so it says this. Radical naughty list.
Wow.
Raphael Warnock. They're all about this list. Pro-jobs list. Kelly Loeffler. And on this side, it looks like this. Radical liberal agenda. Santa workshops. Not even Santa's workshops will survive. They're going to take away Santa.
Santa's gone, y'all.
Holy crap. That's a stretch. Let me see. The Green New Deal will cost families tens of thousands of dollars and close businesses. Even Santa's workshop. Wow. 142,000 jobs lost. They're pointing out straight numbers, and it's going to cost $35 a month. To pass their job-killing Green New Deal, the radical left needs to elect radical Warnock and John Ossoff. Can't let that happen. No votes. So that's another one. Same theme. We got lots of Grinch stuff. Liberal stocking stuffer. Same thing. Liberals will empty your stockings if they get into Washington control. Same thing. The economy's already suffering from COVID. Democrats could halt the recovery. The plan raise taxes, add job regulations, make harder for small businesses, kill jobs, protect Georgia's future, vote no. So, do I have another one? That's them. Notice not a lot of pro anybody, just anti everybody. So don't hand over control to America. Radical Democrats, John Ossoff. And then this one is the only pro one that I saw. And I'm interested. This one is very interesting because they even put Trump's tweet. Keep Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in the fight for America. And then they even they put his tweet, which is interesting. So I left this one for last. I have some Democratic ones, but if you want to talk about this one, because that is interesting.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
My computer just completely shut down, and you guys stayed on this scope, which is an
absolutely true. There was no drop on this side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everything got hot. It just kind of shut down.
Maybe that's what that hum was. It was.
Is it back? Is it there?
No, it's gone now.
Gone.
Maybe it was becoming self-actualized.
It might have been. It might have been. So Ace, I missed your point, man. Tell me where we are.
So we're on this one. I'm going to show some Democratic ones. This one is interesting because they actually put Trump's tweet on their
Oh my gosh.
page.
Which tweet is that, by the way? Give us the first few words.
It says, Donald Trump, the answer to Democrats' voter fraud is not to stay home. That's what Pelosi and Schumer wants you to do. If you want revenge on Democrat for their effort to steal the presidential election, we're fighting hard. You have to show up and vote in the record time.
Okay.
I mean, that's the weird thing about this dynamic too, that they've really sold this, and they've done a pretty good job. I have to admit, I really thought that the stop the steal thing was such a hokey lie and such a bad lie that it would just kind of fall on its face. But it's that language has taken hold for some of these folks, and I know that they all get their information from the same 3 or 4 people, and
Yeah.
So that's the word they know right now.
Right.
So these are some of the Democratic ones. So this is the first one. Vote early to beat and pass COVID relief. That's all they're basically inside. Beat COVID relief, help Jordans recover, jump on the economy. This one is the first one where I saw there was some substance, although not a lot of substance. It's just your basic stuff, which is my only issue with Democrats in here. Is
What are they? I can't quite read them.
The CDC, fully fund the CDC.
It's basically empower health experts, rush support to hospital, fully fund the CDC, free testing and vaccines, another round of stimulus, immediate support of small businesses, cut taxes for working families, a job and infrastructure plan, upgrade transit, build a new hospital and clinics, expand rural broadband, improve schools, make Georgia America's leading producer in clean energy. So this is the only one that I actually saw that had some substance.
That's really interesting that those issues get thrown into that.
Yeah. This one is my kind of favorite. It's using Fox News. Sorry, These are wide, so I can't.
Yep. No.
Can you make it so I can?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can. Yes.
It's hard. I can't fit. Okay. So this
Sorry,
one
dude.
is interesting because they're using the Fox News piece. Kelly Loeffler is knee deep in the swamp, and she's not appointed. I'm sure you guys have seen this ad where basically, I don't know this woman, but apparently she's a little nutty.
Hero.
She went off on her, and it's more stuff in the back. Appointed, knee deep in the swamp, dumped millions in stocks. I think this is one of my favorite ones from the Democrats because it's a nice hard hit. Then this one is also very good, although it's kind of ugly. It's a David Perdue has been finally exposed, and it's like a big hit on him selling. He made 2,596 stock trades, and they're basically just going into everything that he sold. Also,
I like that.
Kind of a good ad. And then the rest of them are all very very what you would think from a Democrat. Very let's go party type and just basically vote. That's all.
Just make sure you vote. Yeah.
That's and then then there's this big one which took up way too much of my mailbox. It's huge. I mean, this thing
is enormous.
It's
like a folder you could send your kids to school with.
We need it's a Warnock one, which I am a little interested in these Warnock ones because this is paid by the Democratic Party, right? It's paid by the Democratic Party, but why only Warnock? Why not school? You couldn't find real estate for Ossoff? It's a little bit weird, but
and there's a lot of empty space on that.
Why you already paid for it? You couldn't have squeezed in Ossoff?
Struggle and what it means to struggle and how much it means to make it. He knows.
He knows, yeah.
Okay, so that's all.
So go back, Ace. Go back. Look at that ad. Let's do it again because I want to go back on these actually now that you've shown them to us.
Yeah.
And I want Jeff and you to diagnose them from an emotional standpoint. And so flip it back over.
That was Barack Obama likes him. That back.
Yeah, that was the
Barack
Obama.
The only thing I can see is the word "we need," which is Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. I feel your pain. I hear what you're saying. Let's see.
Help to change Washington. Vote in the runoff.
Yeah.
And lots of, by the way, this goes to Jeff's later on. Big on vote by mail, vote early. Big pushing this. This is smart because they know the numbers, which Jeff will cover later. This vote by mail is huge on the split, and they're pushing that big.
Notice the use of the Capitol Dome in that ad, just to keep note, because there's a couple more I want to go back through because they were genius. All right, now flip it, please. And then there we go. He knows what it means to struggle and how much. Yeah. This is 100% to African American.
Yeah,
Obama's there twice.
Why Ossoff is not on here.
Mm-hmm.
Obama's on there twice. He's in one quarter
on there twice.
Yeah, and the word Obama. So he's technically on there 3 times.
Then we have this one, which is just basically a party vote type of thing.
With what looks to be New York City in the background. Am I right? Is that the Empire State Building?
I think so.
Look at the subliminal stuff to tell what they're trying to say. Okay, keep going, because look at the Congress.
And tells you vote early, and this is where to vote. Now, you could say this is just a general message, but it's paid by the Democratic Party.
It's to a more, let me just say, I think that looks like it's to a more fabulous.
Yeah, it's just basically, hey, don't forget, this is how you vote. Vote early, here are all the locations. And I got to tell you, I'm not getting these from the Republican Party on how to vote. I've gotten 0 of them. I've gotten these type where this is how you vote, a ton of them. That's like the most popular one. Here's how you vote.
That's the smartest pitch to me.
That's the smartest pitch. Vote easy. Then we got this one, which is David Perdue.
Yeah. What's behind him? I can't see that small thing, but I know it's subliminal. Is there any buildings behind him in that?
No, it's just him secretly talking and covering his mouth.
Yes.
Mouth.
Yep.
Like he's making.
Yep.
And then here it's doing a deep dive into how much money he's trading.
Perdue made 2,596 stock trades.
Wow. Leading, by the way, he's made the most out of any senator.
To me, that ad is really a lot of good information that's just way too packed together. They've produced lies where the stock trades have finally been exposed.
The colors and the scheme, not great on this. I don't like how this was put together. It was very...
Who's that aimed at, do you think, in a Georgia election?
I think it's just aimed at your middle-class family that has stocks and they lost money in stocks.
Okay.
And it's annoying for them to... this one is much better because it's very colorful.
Yes, sir.
It's very... it's just a better-looking, like, knee-deep.
It's around the swamp, and it's building on the Fox.
This is going after Republicans. This isn't going after Democrats because we don't watch Fox News. This is going after your Republicans that voted for Biden or maybe thought about voting.
Yeah, it's definitely for the fence riding Republican, and then anyone left of there, of course.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone. Yeah.
Yep.
Drain the swamp. Again, that's interesting for a Republican. Drain the swamp, vote no. And I like this one the most because this piece right here is, I think, important to somebody. She was never elected ever, so she was appointed, and people don't generally like that kind of stuff.
That right there is a gift for a person who's going to a Christmas dinner who needed to have something to argue with because it's going after Jeannie Pirro and it's giving talking points that go into a language that you can get through to a Trumper with because they only come from the Fox or Newsmax or OAN and, madness. They can't even understand language outside of the parameters of that.
Right.
To be COVID pass.
We got this beat the COVID.
I think I like this one. Is this the trifold one?
This is the trifold one.
I like this one, I think.
I mean, it's very Warnocky.
I mean, it's
very like
we all know the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. And I like this one because they've got these 3 sections over here, and then they open it out into bullet points.
And the only people that's for is you, Ace. You literally are the guy that they put that folder thing for, right?
Yeah, so you can go.
They finally give me something.
Yeah, I actually you're right.
Yeah.
No, you got to think demographic.
Gets me some strategies.
I
mean, you see that same strategy in car dealerships, like the new Nissan Sentra, and you open it, and it's like more roomy, best in class fuel economy, blah blah blah, and then you open it again, there's all the bullets. It's very compelling. It's easy to digest.
This one is interesting because it also has track your ballot.
Yeah.
Then it hits the big ones, of course. Pack the Supreme Court, raise taxes, defund the police, enact the Green New Deal.
That's
is that not anti-Semitic the way they've got Schumer looking right there? I mean, to me, that's almost Nazi propaganda there.
Of course it is. They're good at that.
That's really bad. Like they all they have to do is add horns.
Looking over his
shoulder. They only added him.
Oh, so bad.
And it's
hard. It's so hard. People don't understand how hard it is if it's not a mirror image.
Yeah. Then it's this is interesting. I saw Trump's tweet and I was like, that's new.
That's very strange.
That's a badge of support. That's like the Betty Crocker seal now.
And this is also their fight of, hey, he didn't say don't go to vote. He said come to vote and we'll deal with it later.
The thing that's weird about it being a Trump tweet is I'm sure you've all experienced this. You tell somebody, don't you think Trump tweets are terrible, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of his followers will say, I don't have Twitter. I don't read his tweets.
Yeah, they would hate him more.
It's a bit unusual to pin to something that I think even his supporters really don't digest.
This is my personal favorite. I know I said that, but this really is my
this is the one I missed.
This is my favorite because if Democrats win Georgia and enact their radical liberal agenda, Santa's workshop will not survive.
Wow. That's several layers of craziness, but especially it'll take your Christmas away. It'll take your small business away, etc. It's all.
And this fan poll is open to a new.
And then, by the way, look at the color change, right?
Oh my God. Okay.
Right. It's all right. Sweet. Chong, chong.
Oh my! The Green New Deal will cost thousands. Will cost families tens of thousands of dollars.
It is like full on.
Wow.
And then, if you thought this wasn't enough,
dude.
if you flip on the back,
Wow.
You got Santa.
Oh my God. You got Santa's endorsement.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for that.
Are we back to the first one? Oh.
Where's the one that I saw that had Congress all over it? Had the Capitol.
I think
that was sort of the last one with the dome.
No. There was one that was in the background. I thought it was.
Was it?
Off. Anyway, whatever.
Wait.
They're triggering us with those ads, and they're literally hitting you with every single demographic, depending on which person is living in each house, right?
Right.
It's old school politics.
Well, we got this one, which is
it's this one,
the Grinch.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the one that has the Capitol.
I know. I do like that they put a boot on him.
Yeah, but look behind him. Look at the Capitol looming, and everybody in Georgia, both sides of the aisle, hate Congress.
Yeah.
You know, it's got like here it is.
Here's Ace. It's a very shining moment there.
I mean, but seriously, they put him in a boot. Dude. Why?
What's kind of strange is though, I honestly thought initially it was like 4th of July, you know, when that laser like blows up the Capitol. But if you actually look, it's just like a foggy day on the Capitol. Like they don't have like people like living in tents or anything.
By the way,
I would expect like half the dome to be missing. I would expect half the dome to be missing and everything else. By the way, making fun of an injury is pretty low. I mean,
but why is his dog all fat? Too. Yeah. His dogs don't look like that, and they put him in a boot.
The boot is pretty bad.
I mean,
that's just making fun of. I mean, that would be like putting Trump in his mask when you went back to the White House from COVID. You know, like that's pretty low.
But Jeff, don't you think that we're at a point? I think this is back to recognizing what hits and what doesn't. Unless you put a few of those venomous things in there, you're not really legit with today's Republican Party. You have to be a cruel individual.
I guess
you have to sort of exhibit a bloodthirstiness and a hatred of humanity.
Yeah, you got to own the libs. Yeah. That's how they feel. You have to
own the libs.
That's their thing. I thought in the beginning it was more of a Twitter talk, and that was just a Periscope thing. But I started to recognize that, and I'll tell you a scenario that happened to me over Christmas. I started to recognize this is their thing. It's all about owning the libs, and if they can't get something, as long as the libs don't get it, they win. They're happy, very, very happy inside as long as no one can get it, and especially if the libs can't get it, then they're good. Same thing with this COVID relief. It's interesting because I saw a lot of language where it was like, yeah, I mean, he should sign it, but I mean, the libs are going too crazy about this. He's just taking his time. He's trying to get something done. And so what? So we wait a little bit. We'll be fine. It wasn't this rage of emotions where you should get where, wow, the president of the United States is holding up aid to over 50 plus million people that are going to be in deep trouble if they don't get their bills paid. It basically, people can get evicted if this didn't get passed.
Yes.
Unemployment, vaccine distribution. A lot of these poor states like Kentucky can't afford to do a vaccine distribution. This bill paid for it, but no one talks about it. So it was really weird that Trump even tried to touch this bill and not pass it. And then, of course, I think what happens is I think he gets into these major rages where he's just raging and he does stuff, and then they have to come back and clean it up, including him. He's like, well, I already said I'm not going to sign it until you give me $2,000. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to give him $2,000. That's not a Republican policy. You completely railroaded us, the Republican Party, when you say I'm not signing a bill that we with the Democrats agreed upon, and we were the ones that were against the more money. Now you're saying more money. It railroads us.
Well, and his pry bars of leverage seem to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So what this play, he has this silly announcement that says he's not going to sign the thing. And I felt when I watched him, like, he's totally going to sign this thing. He's just a pud who's lying.
Right.
and he's going to stretch it out until it makes everybody freak out. Then he's going to sign it and try to be a hero. But in the meantime, he used that all weekend to threaten, or over the holiday and into the weekend, he used that to threaten Republicans who won't sign and help him take over on January 6th in their crazy fucking coup attempt that they're trying to do.
That is what they're doing.
And so
he used it as his, oh yeah, well you guys, because he knows.
Well, what they are is they're playing hand fighting. They're like little kids in the back seat that are hitting like this. Their purview of thought and their purview of legitimacy is literally about this wide on the entire planet. They've lost everything, and he continues to not only shoot them in the foot, he's blowing toes off of those feet. Yeah, I mean he's a mess,
and he knows for a fact. He knows that if the bill doesn't get passed, the Republicans lose Georgia, guaranteed. Because you can't run in Georgia as a Republican to say, you see, we get stuff done when you're running things and you don't get stuff done, and it's your party that blocked the help in the bill. You pretty much lose Georgia automatically.
It's the opposite of your strategy for Biden, which was,
they don't get anything done.
Well, you were saying, Biden should announce he was going to definitely do relief at the same time as the candidates. This would be the exact opposite. Killing relief right as your candidates are running. I mean, it's just absolutely the worst case.
It's a major loss for the party, and he knows it. So I think you're absolutely right, Marty. It's his time to basically leverage it or do what he always does, which is, hey, do this thing for me. I do this thing for you, like Ukraine. It's the quid pro quo that he does
quid pro quo presidency
time throughout his presidency is quid pro quo every single time.
Well, and my mother and I talked, she's in Iowa, and she was watching some of the local end-of-year politics shows. And, of course, in Iowa right now, it's really easy for them to be talking about the Iowa caucuses and sort of the debacle that happened around the app that came around and all of that stuff. And so while they're doing their end-of-year shows, they're spending a lot of time talking about Iowa Democrats, which is a mess of a party, has been for a long time. There you go, seltzer. But as I was talking to her about it, I'm like, the reason that they're talking about that is because it's all right-wing media in that state, and they don't want to talk about the real narrative, which is Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley are two respected senators that have Ernst just won re-election, which I can't believe. And if you want to look at rigged elections, I think we should look there. But you got Grassley, who's the oldest senator in the entire Senate, and they've been absolutely vacant. They have been absolutely quiet about all of this coup language. And why is none of the Republicans being asked to step up? And why is Chris Christie emerging as a simple hero by saying, I'll probably run in 24 against Trump because I've moved past him? It's really easy for Christie to do that.
Yeah.
He's almost like a patsy for doing it. But the fact of the matter is that the American right wing is the most gutless political party in the history of our country. It may look like it looked at the end of the Whig Party, to be quite honest. Screw Iowa, make a national primary. Do you think? Let me just stop there to the lefty who made the stupidest comment I've ever heard. I believe in representation and meeting the candidates. And the fact is that if you just want to have TV ads and never see a candidate shake hands again, have a national primary.
Yeah,
that's the answer to your question.
I actually don't mind, and this has nothing to do with race or anything like that. I don't mind Iowa being a primary because they really enjoy it. And after this year, when I saw everything that goes into the caucuses and the first vote and second vote, and I look at a state like Georgia and I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that shit.
Right. Nobody's going to do that.
No one's going to do that shit in Georgia, which means it won't work. It's a very weird thing that Iowa has done for a long time.
Totally. The people in Iowa are in the dark for about 4 months before that happens. Literally, it's dark and cold. We had the caucuses in Colorado. Nobody in Colorado has time. They're like, wait, I thought we could vote and go home. And they're like, no, you got to stick around.
You got to
stay 3 hours.
I remember that being an issue where people forgot to. They were like, oh, we can go. No. We just eliminated the first round. It's a very hokey thing. And guess what? No changes really made. There's not much of a change that happens from Iowa. I mean,
New Hampshire is a whole different monster, and it's a whole different group of people, and it comes out of this. I don't know. I don't really want to get into that tonight.
I don't really care about Iowa or changing it, I think.
But that conversation by the media, by the mainstream media, which is always claimed to be some sort of a lefty organization, is like the greatest offensive lineman in the history of the NFL in terms of blocking us from talking about what's really important.
Yeah.
They're just a whitewash of going, oh, we've got a traitorous fucking president over here, but we're going to talk about the Iowa caucuses in that moment. And you know as well as I do, in every state over this weekend, every national show over this weekend, they're going to talk about, oh, let's do a 2020 final episode, all the bullshit, while Trump is literally.
No one is calling him out other than, and even like, I don't even think CNN, I mean, I'm sure MSNBC, but I don't see too much of a, hey, what we're seeing right now is a coup. This is not how they basically stop at this is not how it's supposed to be. And then they stop. But we need to start calling out for what this process is so we're not surprised, because the problem is right now he's the president. And when he says, people listen. But when he's not going to be the president and he's going to say he's running and he's going to keep on doing this whole, what if he's not the president? He still says, oh, it's a fake election. I saw him for the first time say something like fake president. Fake president is a very dangerous word to start throwing around there.
I used it for 4 years, Ace.
Huh?
I used it for 4 years.
Against Trump?
I mean, he was never legitimate to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but you weren't.
But guess what?
President
Everything he signed went into law because he's the president. And when Joe Biden,
it wasn't quite fake, was it?
It wasn't quite fake.
Yeah.
Because the Constitution wins in the face of the. It used to be neocon. Now it's terrorist conservative American right. They prove me wrong, righties. You don't stand for anything. You don't have a platform, and you follow a man who doesn't disavow any of this stuff.
By the way, he didn't speak up against the bombing, said zero things. And I saw a lot of people make it as a joke and say, oh, Trump doesn't want to speak up about it until he finds out if this is a supporter of his. And I was like, I don't actually think that's a joke. I think it's real. I don't
100%.
think. Huh?
100%.
I don't think he wants to speak up because he knows this could be one of his supporters, and it's not a good look for him.
When the Republican Party chose to not have a platform, when they stood up and let Ronna McDaniels literally allow the entire Republican Party to be overthrown on that August day, or July, August, where they said, we're not going to have a platform other than what Trump wants.
Yep.
It was literally the quietest beginning of coup d'etat that's ever happened, where they all just said, all right, here's our entire operation, Trumpy. Go get them, and if you win, we'll trust you.
And if I could just explain, someone put no platform.
Yeah, that's why I said that, because they chose that.
They didn't go on stage and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to lower taxes. We're going to do this. They had nothing that they were running on, which at least the first time when he was running, it was drain the swamp, lower corporate taxes, do this, pass a healthcare plan, which never got passed or even shown. That was the platform. This time around, they didn't have any ideas or anything. It was just vote for us. We're not extreme liberals.
The platforms are adopted at the convention, right? That's part of the convention activities, and they literally passed. They dropped it from the agenda. They did not approve a Republican platform this year.
Am I missing some graphics, guys? I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
Well, I have the bill up, but
okay. Jeff, finish your point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother.
No, it's fine. Well, I heard it covered in a news story in 2016 that they basically said historically Republicans field candidates and the party, the voterate, is extremely heavy on whether or not they fit the Republican platform. Do they believe the things Republicans believe? Trump broke the whole paradigm. He ran on just pure drain the swamp. I'm an outsider. Everything's broken. I can fix it. And they just walked away. They just dropped their agenda. They dropped their platform in 2016. And so it's not a surprise that they formally dropped it in 2020. And that's just a natural fact. I mean, anyone go back and look. That's exactly what happened. I mean, there were real Republicans who've been Republicans for a long time that ran in 2016 that were laying out the platform. and they got talked over and called dummies, and that their wives were ugly, and Trump got picked. So go back.
It's Republicans' fault that they did that because
healthcare plan in 2 weeks. I can't wait.
That's the platform.
Right before the inauguration, we'll get the
lies, lies. And the problem with the American right is not everybody wants to be in this crazy cult, but they don't have another vehicle. There's one car. And so they had to go over this cliff with Trump. And now I think that's what happened maybe over this weekend.
And something hit me today. We've had this story several times. We've discussed it here. I don't want to discuss it this way, but they say you guys voted for Biden because he's not Trump. Well, the reason the Trump supporters are throwing that at us is they voted for Trump because they wanted to be anti-establishment. So instead of establishment Republicans that could have accomplished goals and put in policies and changed things positively, they went for an anti-establishment guy to vote against the establishment. And then that's what they got. And he was terrible. So they're accusing us of what they did again. Yep. They're accusing us of voting against something when we actually voted for something. Yeah.
And yes, it is. It always is. In fact, hold on.
Yeah, we're gonna go big full screen with it again.
Just cause
Yeah, I'll give you more. There
it is.
I got the duel. There we go.
Very nice.
Whenever I do my
a very nice assorted beverages.
I usually do that.
He does have assorted beverages.
Ace, we've got a very nice assortment of beverages as well.
Yes, we got some Cokes and
hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
But just to kind of back up on what Marty was saying, and Jeff, this is why I keep on saying that when people would ask me who did I vote for, I would say I voted for democracy. We really need to brand the new Republican Party as anti-democratic. They're not democracy. And when you vote for them, then I get to say you're not voting for democracy.
Well, they've literally embraced that in their propaganda. They've literally embraced that language, Ace.
But we need to point it out to your average person that, hey, just so you know, you're not voting for democracy anymore.
There it is, right there.
Different.
Russell does not want us to vote. That's what that means.
Well, he did say we live in a republic, which is slightly more accurate, but yes.
No, we do live in a republic, but we do use democratic principles to get the republic in place.
Sure.
And I know that we live in the republic, but you have to make most people, especially Trump, people that don't follow politics or understand how laws work, the republic thing is a little bit more confusing. Wait.
Jace, I gotta address this because I've been on Jack Scopes before, and he's a reasonable guy, and I gotta ask him about safeguards of a republic, and you're talking about overthrowing an election, man.
Yeah, you guys want a coup?
You've got the electoral college that has already cast their vote, and you're still going to have these over the top rallies. When did the republic safeguards? When is that okay? Yeah. Doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense.
And they're just not pro democracy anymore. They're pro their own party, which means that Trump is a king.
They're not. No, they're not a pro party. A party has a fight.
Well, they're pro dictatorship at this point.
That's right. Let's recognize that's the piece actually, because they're not pro party. A party has a platform. A party has people throughout its small county system, state system, even districts. A lot of times there's something to get before the state, and then to the national primary where people literally throw down about things like free trade or not free trade or healthcare or whatever, tax cuts in case of laissez-faire economics. But that party doesn't exist anymore. There is no place to go throw down on the right. It's only acquiesce to the God man.
Yeah, whatever Trump says, just like in any other dictatorship. I said this in every single scope. We forget that most countries that have dictators or different type of rulers, most people like them. If 90% of them didn't like them, they would be overthrown. But people like Saddam Hussein. We forget that. It wasn't that everybody hated Saddam Hussein. There was a huge amount of people that liked Saddam Hussein. So we have to be careful. Just because it's United States, it does not allow. We're not special to not have a dictator. There's nothing about us. In fact, our government is very young compared to every other country. So we can have a major hiccup and boom, boom, and you have a dictator. It really doesn't, it's not out of the realm. I tell that to some people and they're like, oh, come on, you're kidding me. But if
I'd like to ask a different question.
Trump has done 4 years ago, you would say, oh, come on, you're kidding me.
Has there ever been
real?
Guys, has there ever been a larger socialist government spender in the history of this country than the current president?
I would argue it's not socialist because we didn't get the money. So
government transfer of wealth that went to certain people for social programs, that in this case to billionaires, because they believe that billionaires are needed for the rest of the economy to support. So they would say we did get the money, but socialism is a transfer of wealth. And has there not been more wealth? I mean, he signed a $2.5 trillion thing 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Huge.
Are we going to start hearing austerity again from the right, Jeff? Are Kansan Republicans going to come into the coffee shop and start telling you who's going to pay for this, Jeff?
Oh,
sure.
As soon as Biden, unlike COVID, which was supposed to disappear after the election, here's something that will happen as soon as Biden becomes president. We're going to start talking about the national debt. Day one. As soon as Biden comes in, it's all talking about the debt and how we need to cut funds. And that's they're going to be their thing. They didn't talk about national debt for 4 years.
Right.
And use this country like a credit card and stole billions and trillions of dollars at this point that went to to billionaires. But now Biden will be, and we'll start talking, you'll hear about national debt like no tomorrow.
Someone says socialism is rugged individualism and all these other things, but socialism can also be a government funding corporations. So when you have corporate welfare, that is a form of socialism. When the government's basically taking over corporations by bailing them out and funding them, that is a form of socialism. It's not communist socialism. It's not paying the individual, but taking control and being a safety net for corporate expenditures and over expenditures is kind of a socialist policy. It's definitely not capitalistic where you would let someone fail.
Yeah. And I think the word socialism it's super confusing, especially when you're comparing it to a bailout, Social Security, which is a socialism, and something like a Medicare for all, which is what we talked about last time. Mm-hmm. And there are some forms of socialism that are less problematic than others. How do I mean that? If the government gives you money, redistributes wealth, and lets you use that money to buy from private, it's a little bit less problematic. When you work for the government and they are your job, that's a lot more problematic. That's why socialism is a little bit confusing when I talk about Medicare for all and not being super for it, because that form of socialism is bigger problematic because you're working for the government, you get healthcare from the government has all the power versus the government giving you money, subsidizing it for you to funnel it through private. Both socialism, one less problematic than the other.
Was the Transcontinental Railroad socialist?
I'm assuming yes.
I would say
giving a bunch of land to people who were going to lay down railroad track to get it across the country as fast as they could in the middle of a war.
I would say the entire interstate.
But it was fine, right? Because it was the private industry did it.
The entire interstate system.
I'm wondering if there's a different word. It's just like Social Security. Social Security is socialism, right?
Right.
I mean, we're taking money and we're giving it to other people and it comes through. There's a whole bunch, but you're funneling that money through a private industry. Medicare is socialist too.
Well, and the word socialist in political advertising, as you showed a little bit ago, and I think the Schumer picture, leans into some of those memes that or some of those tropes that actually get built. But one of the tropes that's been built by the American right is this idea that you don't want to be a welfare queen, or you don't want to support a welfare queen, and that there's just something just truly evil about that at a baseline level. And so wages haven't gone up since the 80s, and we've floundered around unless you're a billionaire and going to Panama to put your money in the Cayman Islands and Panama and all these different sort of ways that a certain class of people live. You've been left behind.
Yeah.
And in the same time, I've been paying a lot of taxes every year. I've been coaching baseball. I've been doing a lot of stuff, and I've been raising a family, putting kids through college. And all of a sudden, we've got these trillion-dollar companies that emerged while the good years of my life have been going on. And the idea that we cannot somehow, as Andrew Yang laid out, to say we can tax the incredibly billionaire class and the corporate class to give a universal basic income to eliminate justice needs. And this is me as a pastor speaking, as a Christian pastor. I mean, Christmas is all about the old Jewish idea of Jubilee, that one day God would set stuff right and everybody would get made whole again. Instead of being in debt forever, there would be this thing. So a lot of these Christian people are sort of merciless when they talk about any of these programs, because they believe in this lie that government cannot be part of the help. And the fact is, our government comes from we the people. And so we're going to have to pull back during these times, I think, during the Biden administration, and just recognize that we're done arguing with a party that doesn't have a platform. We're done arguing with people that literally gave up their stance so they could support an individual.
We should just demand their platform. When they say Democrats just voted against Trump, be like, do you have the Republican platform handy? Can you show me the 2020 Republican platform so we can discuss issues? And watch them go. I want to make one comment as the moderator. There's some arguments going on in the comments, but I would like to congratulate Russell and Jack. You guys are disagreeing with us, but in a very civil way, and I appreciate that.
Seriously.
If you come in here and call us low IQ and call us names, we have no choice but to mute you, because
that's not what we're trying to do here.
I would also like to point out that it's very interesting that Jack and Russell disagree about Social Security. One of them says it's a forced savings account. The other one calls it a Ponzi scheme. I think the truth is somewhere in between. It's a forced savings account, but the federal government is able to use those funds in the interim. So and then if the question is the federal government going to replace them or not? So if the federal government replaces them, then it's a forced savings account. If the federal government defrauds them, then it's a Ponzi scheme. So you're actually both right, I would argue. But it's not just a forced. I would say it's absolutely not a forced savings scheme, and it's also not a Ponzi scheme. It's definitely a blended thing in the middle. Just my 2 cents. But
it was a harsh lever. It was a harsh lever imposed when laissez-faire do-nothingism was the response to an economic, not recession, but full-fledged depression that just kept spinning worse. And you know, they've hated Roosevelt since he was alive, since he was in power, for having the courage to just put things in place and tell the courts to step back. And that's where Trump, and I'm going to say this as a left guy, center left, Trump could have very easily won this election, very, very easily in one speech. Could have been in July, could have been in the last week of the thing. He could have come in and said, you know what, I've done my thing. I've been brash. I've made some mistakes. I shouldn't have done some of the things I've done, and I'm going to try better. I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to listen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would have worked, actually.
It would have worked, and he would have won by 10 points.
Done that, and then added in it's time to come together, work. We need to get a lot of stuff done. He can't do that.
He can't do it.
It's not like people need to understand. This is what people don't understand.
Never done that.
Doesn't have that thing. He is a broken human being.
You're correct.
Either like autistic or something is just not there where he does not have that thing where he can be like, it's time to rein it in a little bit and I can actually win. He's his own worst enemy. And he has proof of that, which is why he's so upset, because his party did excellent. They gained seats. They could win the Senate. They were supposed to be blown out. They won seats and House seats in places where he lost. So people went and split the ticket, which almost never happens by a lot. I mean, in Georgia, he lost. David Perdue got like 200,000 more votes than he did.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. And I'm telling you, this state is not a Democratic state yet. It's a Republican state. I live here. It is a Republican state that is growing quickly to become a Democratic state because of Atlanta. But Trump has destroyed Trumpster.
I disagree.
I mean, I don't understand how.
This is a critical argument because it basically says point blank that we don't need a party system where we fight about issues anymore. We just need a face, an outsider. You know, then they'll throw the businessman thing in there. Well, he's been a horrible president because he's a businessman.
Exactly. And
part of being a great general, if you're a great general, you think about the tactics that are going to win, but you also think about all the potential contingencies as well. And therefore, being a great general, being a great leader, sometimes is not the most efficient model. Running a business has to be efficient by law. In many cases, it has to be efficient. That's not the way of government. And so part of this myth, this Reagan myth, that it was a lie and that has been adopted fully for 40 years now. The worst thing you can experience is the federal government knocking on your door saying, I want to help. Right. Tell that to the people who live on the Mississippi River when their farm has gone under 6 times this spring and last spring and the last spring before that. Tell someone that who's on the coast, who's hit their 3rd hurricane for this year. You know, this is an old motif that doesn't work anymore.
Nebraska flooded hard 2 years ago. Like a huge swath of Nebraska flooded a couple years ago.
You know what's another thing of being an important part of being a good general? Winning. You have to win, which I know the Trumpsters are going to always say, oh, he did a lot of stuff. The fact is he didn't win at anything. None of the deals he's made, he's won in. He hasn't really done much. All he's done is just disqualified everything that Obama did with a piece of paper, and that's it. But he's not putting any replacements.
To be honest, Jack, I do.
Yeah.
I hate the mealy mouth middle, and that's why we need a dynamic centrism that's got some courage and some specific goals.
I'm not sure it's fair
I'm afraid that if we got too pragmatic, you'd end up calling us the squad, and I'm not the squad. I'm not that far. But
I don't think it's fair to put Dem in there and not Repub. Yeah. I mean, you know, neocon, Rhino, we could have a conversation, but to just put Dem in the middle, I mean, you can't just write off half of American politicians as being warmongering death cults. If you're not putting in Republicans also. I don't see how that's a corollary, but
you also can't really talk too much about death cults when Trump okayed the death camps in China on record.
Yeah,
we have it on record. He okayed people being killed or whatever is happening in camps. He also put children in cages and separated them from parents.
He praised North Korea. He
I
praised the North Korean leader who also has death camps for actors.
It's always splitting with them.
He also, the first thing he did was pass laws or executive orders with a travel ban against people for a religious litmus test.
He's also currently wiping his ass with the Constitution in some last-ditch attempt to be state president, even though he lost an election that was certified by all secretaries of state. So
that has been certified in the Electoral College.
So let's make it neocon, Rhino, Trumper death cults, and then I'll agree with you. Yeah, let's make it neocon, Rhino, Trumper death cults, and I'll agree with you 100%.
And Jack, here's another piece I'll throw on it, and that is the DCCC, started by Bill Clinton in the late '80s, and the others who were in his bit. I'm not with them either. I've been against that for a long, long, long time. And I know how both of our parties have been usurped. Do you remember back in the day when when the Republicans started it, but then the Democrats followed suit in pushing free trade? Well, there were a lot of people on both extreme party sides, not even extreme, the old school party sides that were protectionists, saying this is not going to work. So 30, 40 years later, nobody went and learned how to code after they lost their job at the welding factory, and come to find out. And then they're broke, and so they end up voting for Trump, who says, we said we should take our country back, America first. It's like a pimple. It was right for a long time, and Trump popped it.
Can you pop up the next one? I don't know what he even adventures.
I look back. He also has another one, so we might have to start ignoring him again.
Yeah.
He said crazy. Give him space to negotiate the NK, which I assume he means give him space to. He actually says give home space to negotiate the NK. Somehow the Trumpers believe that Trump has done something to help us defeat North Korea. Now, if someone could list what that is, I would love to hear it. Because
Give up.
Instead, he's launched 110 missiles or something while he's been president. I mean, I don't think he's developed a new missile or two. He's probably developed nuclear weapons during the time. So
and there's also Iran that's also
he's shredded the only thing we had to control Iran.
The idea that he has cut our support for the South Koreans, the idea that he went across the DMZ and shook the man's hand as the president of the United States. I mean, he has no honor.
No.
He has no
He saluted the North Korean general. He saluted the North Korean general.
There's no patriotism. He doesn't understand what it means to be a patriot.
We're still at war with North Korea, and he saluted one of their generals. I mean, wake up, right? Wake up, Trumpers.
He also
he is your enemy.
He also let our allies, the Kurds, get slaughtered while they were still hosting and keeping all the ISIS prisoners in their jails. They had to leave because they knew they were about to get slaughtered, and the ISIS prisoners went with them, got let out. Like, it's ridiculous. The other issue that I have with Trump is it's kind of a two-part because I always get confused. One is he uses his supporters in a way where he knows they don't know how policies work, or he also doesn't know it and someone else is kind of lying to him, which brings me to this bill, to the statement that he sent out today about the COVID relief. This is, and after we read this, there's two questions. I'm confused. One is he saying this stuff because he knows that his people are not, they don't know what's up, they don't know how it works, or is he also doesn't know how it works either? And if we can,
Ace, I'm gonna pause that question because we're about to go down a deep well, and I think we need a break. Yes. And we have a break tonight. We have a sponsor. Jeff is ready to show something. I'm going to give you the screen, Jeff. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Game on, brother.
Tonight's show is sponsored by MyPillow. The founder, Michael Lindell, sent the following message. My new sheets are high thread count made from the finest cotton in the world, grown only in the Giza region between the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea and the Nile. They come in single, double, queen, king, California king, and Klansman. I personally guarantee you will get the best night of sleep you've ever had on my greasy sheets. The first night you sleep on my greasy sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else. Signed, Mike Liddell.
Wow. Now, of course, that is a parody. Just to be clear, we are not.
Just to be clear, I do not represent anyone related to MyPillow.
But we are recognizing the fact that this is the core. The greasy sheets and a used pillow are the core of the Trump train. At least maybe in every sleeping car on the Trump train.
The secret of MyPillow is it's ground up older pillows. It's just chunks of foam, folks. Don't buy a MyPillow. That's a joke.
What does it mean to have a? This was brought to you also to prove a point. What does this mean that a president is hawking goods, hawking wares?
Right.
Well, that's his thing. That's why he has so many supporters around him. He really is. He does really run it like a crime boss. If you think about it, what he does is he allows everybody around him to get very, very rich, richer than they have ever been, because he lets them all have a piece into the corruption, and he just needs a little thing off the top. He skims off the top in any which way. It's either do me a favor or do me this, but he lets them all in on it where they're all good. For example, Mike Pompeo. You think Mike Pompeo would have been having awesome dinners, $30,000, $40,000 shindig dinners? No, he doesn't. Mike Pompeo is not going to do that. But Mike Pompeo now gets to go to super expensive resorts that he's never been able to go to. He's able to schmooze and elbow bump with the elites, and he's able to fly around the world doing things where the normal government figure would have to have an aide and someone that's keeping track and going, hey, you can't really do this. This is against the Hatchet Act. But Trump allows Mike Pompeo to do whatever the hell he wants because he goes, you go do you. Of course, get some off the top. It's all yours. That's why he's so popular. Same thing with My Pillow.
I think Mike Pompeo is very potentially one of the leading contenders coming out of the Trump administration to be the next president. I see that over there. I really do. I've been watching Pompeo for a long time. He's Harvard educated. He's ruthless as hell. And he's a Zionist. He believes in, pulling levers so Jesus comes back. I mean,
he's got no personality though. Zero. Negative personality. He has less personality than Bloomberg, which is a problem.
You're right about that.
He has no likability, no charisma or anything. I mean, we saw that, you can be a name, but when you bring in Bloomberg and you listen to him, you go, oh, this guy is weird. And Mike Pompeo is weird.
Jeff.
As a transition issue, I was thinking maybe I wrap up my mail-in thing real quick. Yeah. And then we can go into all of Ace's info about this.
Is this the slide over here?
Yeah, start with that slide and I'll take over from there. So I'm showing you this just to cite my source. This is the graph I use, and it's from Pew Research. It's a survey, unfortunately. I mean, obviously they can't there might be a way to find this through Secretaries of State, but I don't know it. So this is an actual survey done after the election of how people voted. Okay, so that's the basis of my numbers. Now, here we've got an Excel spreadsheet. Let me see how it looks on people's devices. I'll try and just go through it in a way. Oh, it looks pretty good on my pad. So this is that same set of numbers just typed in here so that I can mess with it. So what this says is Trump voters, 32. This is out of 100 voters. So 32% of Trump voters said they were going to vote by mail, and 58% of Democrats said they were going to vote by mail.
Okay? When did they say that?
After they voted. So they said they voted by mail.
Okay.
Or they said they voted. The in-person I'm just ignoring for now. So then we go down to the finals of the election. Well, it was 48% to 52%. These were the final vote counts I got today. If someone disagrees, that's fine. So basically the vote came in 52% to 48% popular vote. So we go up here. We say, okay, then 50 out of 100 people, 48 Republicans, 52 Dems. In this example, they all vote in their party. So when you take 48 times 32%, you get 15 mail-in votes for Trump. And when you take 52 Dem votes against 58% by mail, you get 30 votes. So for every 45 ballots, Biden adds a 15-vote lead. And here they are as percentages. Yeah.
So he nets 15.
So he nets 15 votes out of each group. So across the country, out of 1,000 mail-in votes, he adds 333 votes to his lead. And here it is for 10,000. Here it is for 100,000. So when you count 100,000 votes, they are 66,600 for Biden and 33,300 for Trump. And Biden gains 33,000 votes. So now I did a blue district because this is what they talk about is these abhorrent situations where these weird dumps came in. So now I'm talking about an area that is 3-1 Democratic. So let's just say the deepest inner city districts there are. And you got 50 Republicans and 150 Dems vote. So it's out of 200 people, 50 are Republicans and 150 are Dems. Or at least there's a batch like that. It doesn't even have to be a whole district. Just there's a batch of ballots that look like that. So when you take 50 votes times 32%, you get 16 votes for Trump. And when you take 150 votes for Biden times 58%, you get 87 votes for Biden. So that is 15.5% to 85%. right? 15.5 to 84.5. So every time you count votes now, 68.9% gains Biden ground.
Wow.
In other words, you count 1,000 votes, Biden goes ahead by 689 votes. When you get to 10,000, it's 6,893 votes. You get to 100,000 votes, when you count them, Biden gains 68,932 votes. There's some decimals I'm not showing. So again, out of that 100,000, just so you know I'm not lying, out of 100,000 votes, you get 15,500 for Trump and 84,466 for Biden. Again, creating a 68,932 vote lead for Biden. So what this is illustrating is, now again, maybe there is no place that's 3-1. Maybe it only gets to 2-1. Okay, fine. Back it off a little bit, and this number is 55,000.
I mean, we were seeing some places at 87%, though.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So this is what happened that's freaking everybody out is you were counting the polls, and I didn't break this down, but you've got 67% Trump voters and 41% Biden supporters that voted in person or before in person. So you have that 67 to 41. Okay, that's a pretty decent Trump lead. But then when the mail-in comes in, it's either 2/3 or in some very blue areas, which of course, by the way, this blue example is also your highest populated. In other words, there's going to be counties where Trump still, even with mail-in, got more votes than Biden. But that's 1,000 people as the total population, or 3,000 people. When you get into towns with 150,000 people and you start to get this secondary effect, well, now you've got 150,000 votes coming in at 85% Biden. That's how things start looking really weird. And when you take those two populations and you got the poll votes coming in, and you got these trend charts, and all of a sudden, bink, Biden jumps, and everybody goes, "Hey, that's a crappy dump. That's BS." Well, it doesn't. It's not. It has to do with the fact. This is the most important fact. Now, again, this is a poll. Somebody can probably find a Secretary of State that has the actual number. But if Trump voters really did, 32% of them vote by mail, and 58% of Biden voters voted by mail. That is a big problem, especially, by the way, when you multiply that against the fact that 4% more people voted for Biden. So not only is it a much larger percentage voted for Biden, but also voted by mail for Biden. So you've literally got out of a grid. You can imagine a grid: voted in person for Trump, voted by mail Trump, voted in person Biden, voted by mail Biden. The biggest box is by mail Biden. So literally the biggest box that exists is voted in, in person Trump is also a big box. But as you move through time, you're literally sweeping from in-person Trump to by mail Biden. And that's why everything shifted through the night, which we all predicted. That's why they call it the Red Mirage and everything else. But then, by the way, the reason they talk about these bad dumps, just FYI, you can save yourselves the energy of reading the articles. What they do is they look at the 10 most disparate data points, and they say they can't be explained through statistics and everything else. Well, that's exactly what happens. What I'm showing there probably isn't the most disparate group of votes. There's another group of votes that's 90% or 95% Biden. Everybody goes, that doesn't make sense when it's almost 50-50. Well, it doesn't make sense if every bucket is the same. If every bucket is in-person votes, you're right. One bucket being 95-5, that makes no sense. But when you already take it and you swing it by almost twice as many Democrats voting by mail, all those stats start to skew. And then again, we all know the bell curve. If you're talking average height, guess what? You don't go out here and go, did you know someone reported that they're 9 feet tall?
Right.
Well, apparently that person, there is some 9-footer out there somewhere. I mean, that's the point. You don't look at the most disparate data points and say, well, this data's crap. You look at the fact, does it make a bell curve? Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess it's good.
And we also completely forgot that when the Democrats and the normal, what I would say public, were running around and going, hey, Trump was trying to break the mail. Right. Now we know why. And we certainly completely forgot about DeJoy breaking the mail.
Right.
One. The other point that I gotta make, and I hope the Democrats are on it. This has kind of revealed a huge, like you could see that 80% of Democrats vote by mail, which is great, but it is very problematic in the future because you can then pinpoint how to get rid of certain sections. Much harder to do if everybody goes into a place and votes in person, because you won't know who's a Democrat, who's a Republican. Now, Jeff, if I go, oh, I need to get rid of 800 votes. Well, if I throw out 1,000 votes from my county that goes 80-20, I got rid of 800 votes. That easy. Much quicker to do laws and add in specific things, which I guarantee you the Republicans are going to do, to throw votes out. Put them in another envelope, sign the envelope, put it in backwards. Oh, you didn't, you licked it. You didn't do all the shenanigans. They love doing that. So I hope the Democrats go on offense of knowing that they've revealed their strategy of mail-in works. You get more votes.
Right.
Awesome. But just know the Republicans are right behind you on figuring out how to slow you down. And when they slow you down, they get a lot more because they're getting 80% out of chunk.
Well, and just to your point, I agree with what you say. What didn't work this time when they tried to, I'm sure we all watched the Scopers and all these other people mail in. It was all mail in sucked. The problem that they had was state legislatures are allowed to make laws about their elections, and they had approved it as a method, and all these people had used it. So the problem they have is, yes, could they legalize mail-in ballots for the next election, 2024? Yes. They could say, no, let's just get rid of mail-in vote across the country. They could absolutely work to do that. The problem they had this time is they tried to kill it too late and through non-legal channels. If Trump, when he did his voter fraud investigation in 2017, decided mail-in was a problem, which he did not, if he decided mail-in was a problem in 2017, he could have taken action across the states and gotten rid of it. But he didn't do that. Instead, it was just this retroactively, well, Dems like to vote that way, so we should throw them out. And as I stated, and I'm glad it's held so far, you can't just come in now and take, 52% of half the voting public and just say your votes were thrown out because we just decided retroactively mail-in doesn't work. Because as I stated, and as the courts have held, I used a legal method to vote. And you can't now take my ballot and say, well, it's not like I sent it in on carrier pigeon hoping it would work. I followed the policy laid out. So they'll have a choice now. Do they want to actively attack mail-in voting or not? But I don't think it'll ever be successful to retroactively, after the ballot has been cast, to cast it out. And if you do, you definitely have to do it before Election Day. So then I can choose to now vote again and vote in person. And, if they decided, November 1st, all mail-in votes are going to be shredded, well, then I could have gone in and voted. It would suck, but I could do that. You can't do it now.
So this hodgepodge system that we have has been critiqued, and the idea of a national voter ID has come in, and of course that becomes a power move for people. Then they can't vote unless they are in the system and all of those different things, and a citizen and triple approved, and all the different ways that's going to basically block people who didn't go get the voter ID ahead of time. So grandma who shows up on voting, who's voted her whole life, didn't get one. She doesn't get to vote. So those sort of oppression and suppression moves.
And the same people that don't want background checks to wait until they clear, same people that don't want special certifications for assault rifles, suddenly now want us all to get another ID. Is that what we're supposed to believe?
It's a little weird.
Something about that, isn't it?
Interesting.
So then another question then is, over the course of adaptation from COVID-19 and everyone doing business in a new way, I've seen several, TikToks where guys are standing up there saying, listen, I just spent my entire life's wealth on purchasing. I sold my old house and I just bought a new house, and I haven't been in my new house yet. And we've done it all online. And I literally saw the house, bought the house, signed for the house, set up the tax structure so that I can live in this house, and I'm about to move into this house all digitally.
Wow.
And yet somehow you can pay your taxes digitally. Somehow we can't find a way to have a super secure and double secure and triple secure and back checked system that just makes fucking voting. Here's my language around it. Make voting fucking easy.
Right. Yeah. Someone just said no one should have to wait 8 hours to vote. I can one up you, Marty. The way I vote for home, the way I confirm I am who I say I am, is I use my driver's license number. Now, how do I achieve a driver's license? How do I get my physical driver's license? They mail it to me. So we already use the mail to legitimize your identity. So you know what I mean? Like if I can defraud the mail, and I guess get what people to go in and get IDs, but send them to my house. I mean, I don't even know how any of that's supposed to work. But the point is, even if you had voter IDs, guess what? You'd apply for them online. You'd probably take a picture from your laptop, and they'd bounce it against your driver's license real quick, and they'd mail it to your house. So the point is, we consider mail an official communication method. You get a certified letter when the city condemns your sidewalk, and you have to respond, or else they just charge you to fix it, right?
You cannot incorporate a business, at least in the state of Colorado, until you have an address, even if it's a PO box.
Fines as well, and you could pay those fines online.
Yep.
So the whole mail thing it would work. I'm surprised that the Republicans, I think they just missed the idea of mail because I think they could have taken advantage of mail in a lot of states like Florida and states where they're going to get a ton more. We'll probably have to talk about Florida another day because Florida, we as Democrats need to just say goodbye to that state because unlike Georgia, I don't think we're winning Florida anytime soon. I think that's now just a Republican state, and I don't know if it's a swing state anymore. So but I think if you go mail in Florida, you just get a Republican state. So I'm surprised they don't push it. I'm assuming they will because I'd be interested to see what Florida did in mail-in ballots because Florida was not close anymore. And I'm wondering, is it because they did a huge mail-in ballots and there's a ton of old people that live in Florida and they all voted versus any other year they would vote, maybe not?
PK Public says Florida is killing us, and I would just say radical, fanatical Christians are killing us.
Correct. And I would say, by the way, the Democrats, it wasn't zero, right? I believe it was 32% voted by mail. And so I know, for example, someone in our comments, she can speak up if she'd like to, received several applications for mail-in ballots from Republican organizations. So as much as Trump said don't do it, and as a whole,
there are states that did it.
Some people definitely did, and it would have been a huge miss if they hadn't done some of it because obviously you got elderly people, you've got physically handicapped that can't leave their home. I mean, you can't just write off mail-in ballots. That's just that. Well, I mean, apparently that was 32% of Republican votes, so they can't just say don't do it, or else they will absolutely lose forever.
I think their fear of mail-in votes is not even losing an election. I think their fear of mail-in votes is never winning the popular vote. Right. They know they can win an election with mail-in votes if everybody voted mail. They know they can't win the popular vote ever because of states like California and New York, where the Democrats have they essentially start with an extra 2-3 million right off the bat,
and they don't have to win the popular.
Are so against it.
So let's transition into the fact that that the Republicans not only don't believe in mail-in voting, even though they do the mail-in voting, they're going to have people who demand mail-in voting because they've done it, and it's a market concern, right?
Right.
The same thing goes for this package that Trump came out and said that he's not going to do. And tonight, before we went on air, Trump signed the package. And Ace, you've got a variety of things you wanted to say about that. I think we should segue into that now.
Oh, yeah,
you want me to turn this
COVID relief.
Yeah, do you want me to turn this screen up here for you?
Can you read it?
I can.
I'll zoom in. But before we read this, let me just kind of go over, just so everybody kind of understands on how bills and laws and stimulus packages work. So we're all on the same page. And then we're going to read this, and we're going to see a different made-up thing, which is the Senate or the House passes, whichever one goes to her. They pass, they agree on it, then the Senate passes it. Once that's done, it's handed to the president. Once the president signs it, it becomes a law, and it's ready to go.
Yep.
There is no take backsies. There's no if, then, maybe. It's been signed. It's a done deal. So we're going to read this, and you're going to know. So whenever you get a Trumpster that says, oh, no, he's still fighting, remember how the bill actually works. Can you see that okay?
I can. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
As President of the United States, it is my responsibility to protect the people of our country from the economic devastation and hardship that was caused by the China virus. I understood that many small businesses have been forced to close as a result of harsh actions by Democrat-run states.
Yep.
Many people are back to work, but my job is not done until everyone is back to work. Fortunately, as a result of my work with Congress in passing the CARES Act earlier this year, we avoided another Great Depression. Under my leadership, Project Warp Speed has been a tremendous success, and my administration and I developed a vaccine many years ahead of wildest expectations, and we are distributing these vaccines and others soon coming to millions of people. As president, I have told Congress that I want far less wasteful spending and more money going to the American people in the form of $2,000 checks per adult and $600 per child. As president, I am demanding many rescissions.
It's a made-up word and a made-up process.
As president, I am demanding that many rescissions under the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. Oh my God. The act provides that, quote, whenever the president determines that all or part of any budget authority will not be required to carry out the full objectives or scope of programs for which is provided, or that such budget authority should be rescinded for fiscal policy or other reasons, including termination of authorized projects or activities for which budget authority has been provided, the president shall transmit to both houses of Congress a special message. That quote, I don't know where that quote started.
It's from the act. It's from the act of 1974.
Describing the amount to be reserved, the relevant accounts, the reasons for the rescission, and the economic effects of the rescission.
Of course.
I will sign the omnibus COVID package with a strong message that makes clear to Congress that wasteful items need to be removed. Probably the foreign aid and other things he's listed. I will send back to Congress a redlined version, item by item, accompanied by the formal rescission request to Congress insisting that those funds be removed from the bill. I am signing this to restore unemployment benefits, stop evictions, provide rental assistance, add money for PPP, return our airline workers back to work, add substantially more money for vaccine distribution, and much more. Oh my God. On Monday, the House will vote to increase payments from individuals from $600 to $2,000. Is this true, Ace?
It's not going to pass. I mean, the House will pass it, but the Senate won't pass it. So it doesn't.
Therefore, a family of four would receive $5,200. Additionally, Congress has promised that Section 230, which so unfairly benefits big tech at the expense of the American people, will be reviewed and either terminated or substantially reformed. It really?
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, comma. The 230, which he wasn't going to sign, what am I trying to say? That it was the defense bill, right?
That's the Twitter. Yeah. So he added in this one as well because he signed the defense one and then moved that 230 to this one now, which means nothing because none of this means anything.
How you doing, Jeff? Do you need to talk?
Right. Oh my gosh.
We're almost done. We're almost done.
This is amazing.
Likewise,
Apparently,
the House and
Trump
Senate
never watched Schoolhouse Rock. That's all I got to say.
Likewise, the House and Senate have agreed to focus strongly on the very substantial voter fraud which took place in the November 3rd presidential election. The Senate will start the process for a vote that increases checks to $2,000, which they can't, repeals Section 230, and starts an investigation into voter fraud. Big tech must not get the protections of Section 230. Voter fraud must be fixed. Much more money is coming. I will never give up my fight for the American people.
So this is exactly what I was talking about. This is Mitch McConnell goes, hey, Donnie, I know you want to drive, buddy. Here's a steering wheel. You can drive and honk. It has a big thing. You can keep on doing it. Now, sign this bill. We're going to give you another bill with a red Sharpie, and you can mark it up and go crazy.
And we'll just send that right back to the House.
You can draw on it. You can highlight it. You can put strong wording on it. You could send it back.
Yeah.
The law is enacted. It's ready to go. And then you could give us some strong words and bullshit.
But both houses will pass your red line version, no problem. Even though I would presume Donald Trump spent zero time legislating the first one.
Here's my question, and I don't have an answer to this. The question is, does he believe that this is true, that he somehow is still in act and like they're still going to do something? Or is he just using his supporters and goes, they're stupid, they wouldn't know any better?
Both.
Is it both?
I think it's a little of both.
That they're going to get rid of the Section 230, or they have to do anything now that he has signed it? You think that he's just dumb and they're like, oh yeah, just do this. We'll work on it, Donnie. But we need you to sign it. Like, did Mitch McConnell just have a fast one at him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, so you just think they really did give him the steering wheel and go, oh yeah, you're right.
Just sign that bill.
So.
Sign that bill, but then you can just redline it, put it back through.
Redline it. We'll strongly look into that voter fraud.
Because like you say, Mitch knows. Mitch knew if checks don't get cut,
it's over.
You can write off Georgia. You can forget about it. So he knew, get the checks going. Probably like you say, well, there's this rescission thing. I would actually guess that probably Mitch McConnell said, you'll have to start legislating to get the additional money. Right. And then when he said that's too much work, some other guy said, well, there's this rescission act. I mean, you can technically try and redistribute.
We won't actually do any of the stuff.
My favorite part of the whole thing is that he signed the bill complaining about all this aid for these other countries that match his budget. It's just absolutely the dumbest
card trick. And it wasn't part of the COVID relief bill.
It's the dumbest card trick anyone's ever pulled, and they fell for it.
Now the other question is, what's going to happen? Because he still, in the end of the day, set them up. Because he still says that they're going to vote on $2,000. They're not going to pass it. Right. The Republicans are not going to pass it. So it's kind of a setup for the Republicans to lose.
It's a variety of headlines is what it is. It's a variety. Okay, let's break it down when it happens. It's a Sunday night news drop. That means it leads into a narrative on a dead week from a lame duck president who probably wrote that between the 14th and 15th green.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like to me.
I would
assume he sends a text message and someone else finds the ways to make it make sense.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it sounds like he's yelling shit before he tees off, man. I can put this in there too. Section 230. It's just, it's all the.
Why would Section 230 be part of the COVID relief bill, or election fraud? Why would that be part of the COVID relief bill?
Why didn't Congress pass Kamala Harris's and Bernie Sanders' $2,000 a month bill when it was introduced in May?
Wow.
Because we weren't in the business of getting things done.
Yeah.
We're in the business of political theater and control and power.
And because Trump didn't want it and the Republicans didn't want it. So now here he is. I saw a meme that was hilarious. Democrats, we need more money. I think the meme said something like, we want 1,600. The Democrats like zero. Like we want 1,200. Democrats, zero, Republicans zero. Okay, how about 600? Democrats are like, no, but I mean, okay. And then it gets to Trump. Forget that. It has to be 2,000. It's like, he's not participating in the legislative process. He's apparently not even sending. I was going to say that. Apparently, he's not even sending his delegation to go try and get the Republican side to figure it out. He obviously could have told the Republicans, "I'll veto anything below a grand, or I'll veto anything below $2,000. You guys have to send me $2,000, or I'm not going to sign it." But they didn't do that.
Sorry, Mr. Kling got me.
He got you. I saw that.
I was going to say that.
It was wonderful.
I was going to completely say that because it had Bernie Sanders' name on it.
Well, I mean, it's a perfect example though of like there was a chance to fix this, and obviously that was a lame duck bill, right? That was meant to fail. Yep. I mean, there's literally this bill out there that was submitted that was $2,000 a month, and the Republicans shot it down. And now Trump's like, it's got to be 2,000 or nothing. It's like that's a 6-month-old plan by the Democrats. Like, what are you talking about? And he's I don't know. I guess people just aren't smart enough to Google.
And this whole thing is just basically a way to get his foot out of his mouth. That's all he did. He raged out during the middle of the night, and he said he's not going to sign it. But in order to not back out of it, they gave him a small out, some bullshit, fake stuff that he can't even do. He signed the bill. It's in law. And they made him happy. They gave him the little fake steering wheel. He's on the ship in the front. He thinks he's steering it, while Mitch McConnell's like, we're good now. But
by the time the checks come, George is done. so they don't care.
Yeah, but
and the unemployment benefits.
When they don't pass the 2,000, it's still a Republican. Republicans are going to have to own that loss. A loss they didn't even have to have.
That's right.
He gave them a loss because the whole thing was over. It was a bipartisan bill that both sides agreed on. Yeah. Win-win. Donnie,
don't be surprised, gentlemen.
He goaltended his own goal. He goaltended his own goal.
Listen, if you watch what's going on the right, if you watch the scopes that are happening on the right, if you read the propaganda that's coming out of the right now, it's full on war against the Republican Party, who isn't all in on Trump, and they're threatening to primary the shit out of them. Right. Like they've never seen before. And that's what the whole Stop the Steal organization, criminal organization, is all about right now. They've just been cease and desisted from Joe Biden's campaign, saying, if you guys continue this traitorous rhetoric, we're going to go after each one of you personally.
Did you know
every single clown that goes to that rally next weekend had better be lawyered up, because they're probably going to get a note from Joe Biden because they've already had their cease and desist.
Trumpers think that Ali is a lawyer because he said several times he's affiliated with an organization, and he refused to comment by saying, I'm not going to discuss it while I'm representing them.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I believe no one has any confirmation he's a lawyer. The article I found that was very interesting was from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Did they do a lot of news? I was pretty surprised that they stepped in on that.
They do news when they see live fascist movements happening in real time.
I was like, Southern Poverty Law Center, I don't recall them being a fact-checking organization, but I loved it.
They pop up when the Unabomber was happening. They pop up when things need to be said, because they study this stuff all the time. And
Brian Stevenson's one of my favorite humans on the planet.
When anti-Semitism is in, it's one thing when it's theoretical or you look at it, but when there's a news event happening, and it's happening right now, those people are going into current prose. They're talking about it as if it's today, because it is.
Right. And this kind of, I did want to also bring up, and I don't really want to get negative, but I've said this before. Republicans are the Trumpsters, we're going to get past the point, and some of you already may have drawn that line, where there is no really coming back to it. Because you could lie in the beginning and go, I didn't know what was happening, or, oh, well, I thought he was going to blow up the system. I wanted it to be blown up. I don't like politics. You can do all these things, but we're going to all cross a line to where you're going to go, no, you stayed on there pretty long. And although I really hate comparing Trump to Hitler, because it's not the same thing, but the idea of it is, at what point did some people go, this whole SS thing, I'm afraid to speak up because I'm going to get killed or whatever. But once they were out, there was a whole bunch of people that were still Nazis.
Yep.
So those people that kept on being Nazis after the war was lost or the election was lost, if you keep on staying on that side, then you're on the losing side. You don't really have a comeback.
It's worse. There's people that decades later chose to join that side.
That's even worse. But that's why that weird thing. So there are Republicans that kind of, I would say, listen, you guys need to jump ship, because it's going to get rough when some of the data starts coming out. If you guys are on all about General Flynn, be careful what you wish for. There's going to be a day that's going to come where we're going to find out what General Flynn was talking about with another government that spooked everybody. And we might find out that General Flynn is a traitor, and you are going to have a lot of egg on your face. And on top of that, I get to point at you and go, yeah, but you can't come back. You knew this stuff was happening, and you still stuck with it. So all these Lynn Woods and all of these big shots lawyers that keep on going after us, afterwards, I think they really do need to be kind of shunned from society, that they knew what was up. But what's the line?
And instead of fleeing the sinking ship, they parachuted onto the Trump payment
on the ship
and signed onto the Americas brief, for example.
I always said that the Republicans reminded me of Titanic when it was sinking.
Right.
And the Republicans were the musicians in the end.
Oh, no, the musicians were honorable.
It is what it is. But you're absolutely right. there are actually even more Republicans that are like, "Oh, this thing is sinking. Let's
get on it. Let's see how it's going. Let's take it up.
There's a lot of goodies inside that we can take from this ship. They
also need to never forget, all these Trumpers, that Donald Trump fired Michael Flynn.
Yeah, and said he lied.
He lied to Mike Pence about communication with the Russians. That's why I fired him, Donald Trump said. One of the few people he's publicly stood up and said, I fired him.
Here's another thing that's interesting about Flynn. Have you noticed that the whole unmasking thing left the news cycle?
Yeah.
Why did it leave the news cycle? Because the first person to unmask Michael Flynn was Lindsey Graham, because he sits on the committee. And basically, when he was reading all the data, like to some of you guys that don't know how masking works, basically, every single time if you work for the government and you're talking with another government official or whatever, all of that is recorded and transcribed. Then other government officials get the transcribe, and they don't know who's talking. They can just see who's on the other side. Like they'll see, oh, this person from our government is talking to Erdogan. They don't know who the person is. So Lindsey Graham, that sits on the committee, read this transcript and go, oh, fuck, who the hell is this? He unmasked them, which is the process of finding out who said it. And he went, oh, shit. So that's why the whole unmasking thing left the thing, because Lindsey Graham was the first one to unmask Michael Flynn, because what he read was very damning. And we don't know what was said. So I'm surprised people are always on Michael Flynn's case, and he's a patriot, even though he's a QAnon follower. He's a patriot, but we don't even know what he said.
Yeah.
So when we find out what he said, it might be pretty damning.
So we do know how this works, though, in terms of propaganda and caricature building. And that is, in 1986, when the Iran-Contra thing had blown up in Reagan's face, and we found out we were in all sorts of extremely illegal things going on in Panama and throughout the Central America continent, Oliver North became the general who was, I think he was a colonel actually, who was in charge of all of that. And he ended up going to prison. And later on, he ended up getting a pardon. But he was the first Michael Flynn that was in my lifetime.
He ended up running for Congress, by the way.
Because he became a anti-authoritarian icon of the right.
Right.
And the reasons to getting there were all forgotten. He was one of the most, traitorous assholes of the whole Reagan administration, but he became the key patriot that they all stood next. Oh, if you could be a patriot like Oliver North. It's jingoism, it's marketing, it's packaging.
He's the one, too, that said, I don't recall, or I can't recall, what was like 500 times in his testimony or something.
Yep.
Insurmountable.
Finally, the people that know Michael Flynn and what he said notice that they don't really tie their hooks on Michael Flynn too much.
Right.
Lindsey Graham running out there and going, oh, Michael Flynn is a patriot. Because they can't do it. They know one day it's going to come out what he did and what he said. And when he was planning, most likely what he was planning was to steal the bishop guy or something like that. That's the theory. That guy that Erdogan wants to kill. That's the United States citizen, by the way. The theory is he was planning on stealing him from America and shipping him off to Turkey. That's the theory. That was the plan. And if you have Michael Flynn on record basically talking about not stealing, but
trading us U.S. citizens,
kidnapping a United States citizen to give to a foreign government, and we also probably find out in that, if that's true, what he's getting for it as well. That's got to be trade. I mean, I don't know, what is that? Is that treason? What is that? If you're Michael Flynn, he's a general.
Well, what about Trump just dropping and running from Khashoggi? I mean,
I do love what Colin Powell said this week, which was that the U.S. Army should recall Flynn and ring him up on a war tribunal. And for Colin Powell to say that is kind of out of sorts.
I mean, he is pushing a coup.
Yes.
He's a general.
Yeah.
He's been educated on this stuff. He's not just an ordinary citizen. He knows how coup works. He's probably been in countries fighting against coups. So the fact that a general in the United States citizen is pushing a coup, he really should be punished quite a bit. I'm surprised that he hasn't, but we'll see. And this is where I'm saying Republicans better be careful what they hitch their wagon on, because when that wagon falls apart and we find out there's a lot of snakes in it, it's rough. You guys are going to start defending it. You're going to have to defend it. It's all yours.
Well, I don't think all these Republicans are as all in as their leaders think they might be. And I think that's what we're starting to see with the waning rallies, with the hardcore folks that are still left on Periscope and other social media who are still believing it. They're getting a little more crazy. They're getting a lot more misogynistic. They're starting to lash out at people they think they can lash out at. And in their world, they can always lash out at females. It's part of what they're built on is, and I think what we're seeing now is sort of a remnant, just to speak about this on social media, because there's been some stuff happening on Periscope lately. Don't be surprised that when fanatics and fascists lose, they fight, they bite, they scream, they hit. It's a violent leave. And so as these clowns are in their very last days of any kind of power, maybe for the rest of their lives, and they know it. You can tell by the comments that they're saying that the Republican Party will never be back. And I would just lift up a celebratory tone in the sense of celebrating the career of Rush Limbaugh being over, and that it's over, and that guy has had, and I know that for generations younger than me, he may not have the power, and I'm in my mid 40s, I'm in my late 40s now, but for people that are older than me, he has been a therapist for the conservative right. He has built it into people's brains while they're driving their tractor, while they're driving a semi, while they're working in their shop. He's in the middle of the day, and he gets you in a place, in a state, it's been studied, where you are at your most relaxed and ready to receive. Rush would talk a lot about it. The last time I heard him speak, I didn't catch his last broadcast, but it was a couple of weeks ago. And he was talking about how with conservatism, you have to focus on it daily, because even if you miss a couple of days, that liberal thinking will creep in and it will change you back. And he was the first one to really work the conservative mind and try to legitimize it in a way that gave it some honor. Coming out of the 80s, coming out of years of that, he was out there. Now you've got Hannity, you've got Levine, you've got some of these other guys, you've got the whole right on social media, but none of them have the on-road to the older American psyche that Rush Limbaugh had, because it's AM radio, which is still one of the great communicative devices for this kind of thinking. 3 hours in your head every day, 5 days a week for 35 years. Man, it changed American politics, and they don't have another one of him. They'll have someone else try, and they'll have a whole bunch of them, but they'll never have Rush. And I really think that that's going to be an unknown until it's known. But I think that's going to be a vacuum that they're not going to. It's Motown is over, without the core. It's sort of thing.
As long as he doesn't get replaced by a crazier person than Rush.
I mean, yeah, like
it will be crazier. I promise you, it will be crazier, but it won't replace him.
I don't think Alex Jones can hop in that seat. So the question is, does that seat sit empty and Alex Jones is now the farthest right person? I don't know. I will say, anybody young who doesn't know anything about Rush, look up his thing on Robin Williams if you want to know how disgusting he is.
Yep.
His comments on Robin Williams are some of the worst I can recall off the top of my head. The other thing to what you were saying, I've said this to people, and I do think it's a pretty good high road. When you're arguing with somebody and they hit the end of their intellect, they switch to insults. Mm-hmm. And so there's nothing simpler than when you're arguing with someone, you're just like, wait a second, how can that possibly work? If masks don't work, why have doctors been using them for 400 years, blah, 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 and they call me fat. Yep. I know they've hit the end of their lot. They have no more quotes. They have no logical backup for what they're saying, so they just have to lash out and hope that I block them or lose my shit. Of course, what they really want is me to lose my shit, call them a bunch of names, make myself look bad, destroy the whole scope.
Yep.
So just be ready for when the intellect stops, the insults start. And the truth is, most of these people don't have any actual intellectual ability. They have the ability to regurgitate a lot of quotes, which people excuse us of mainstream media, everything else. Nobody on this panel quotes anybody. We all have thoughts. We figure things out. We have our own thoughts, and we talk in those thoughts. I don't read Now This. I don't read, the Drudge or not the Drudge Report, but like the HuffPo or something, and memorize some editorial comments about how to talk about blah blah blah. I'm having a logical conversation. When someone comes at me with something that doesn't make sense, I say, explain yourself, because that doesn't make any sense. And usually you just get this, libtard, conservative, nonsense response, because they can't define what they're saying, because it's just a quote from the Drudge Report or Alex Jones or somebody else who just calls us libtard, and it's just exhausting.
We all do research.
Yeah,
sure.
We look into the stuff that we don't know. I'm new to politics. There's a lot of things I don't know. But when I don't know them, I look into them and I go, that doesn't sound right. I had a scope a while ago where a guy jumped on and he was talking about Dominion this, Dominion that, and every single issue he came up with, and he said, there was a miscalculation here. I pulled up the county live. I pulled up the county and I said, is this what you're talking about? Oh, yeah. They had a miscount. And then I read the actual story, and the story basically said, someone made the way they calculated votes was from an Excel spreadsheet, and they made a mistake in the calculation in an Excel spreadsheet. And I was like, who amongst us that doesn't use an Excel spreadsheet has not made a mistake on missing a block or missing an equals or adding versus subtracting or doing a sum? That's all it was. I was like, look at this story right here.
Yeah. And there are 15 ways.
Human error.
And it was a preliminary number.
That was caught.
And it was a preliminary error. It was someone putting numbers together to like email them to their boss so they could get them on a website for the media. It wasn't
the formula error.
It wasn't the formal number system. It was something they were doing on the side to feed numbers.
They were doing on the side.
It was basically an email. They were basically emailing information to other people but that's not the formal process. That's just a way to communicate intermediate response.
And what this whole Dominion and this whole election steal thing is, it just goes to show you that most of the public does not know how elections work.
Yeah.
They vote, and that's it. They don't understand that these systems are not connected to the internet. One machine doesn't talk to another machine, and it doesn't talk to another machine, and you have to go physically get the numbers from one machine and then put it in another machine, and then you have to compile them all, so it's impossible to hack, and there's paper ballots and backups and all this stuff. So when you start going through someone that thinks that this whole Dominion thing is actually something, when you start breaking it down, you really just find out that they don't know how the process works.
Those people
understand it. So it's very easy for someone to say, there's 100 votes and 50 were for Donald Trump, 50 were for Biden, but really it changed it all and went 70-30, which is not possible. No. That's the whole thing. And I am happy that Dominion is, and I'm surprised they took so long, that they're now going on super offense and they're suing the hell out of all these people, as well as they should, because they're a huge company. And I'll be interested to see not interested, but it would be a little bit suspicious to see what's going on with this bombing, because right now it's all about 5G, but there's also some Dominion talk that used to be that building was owned by Dominion owners, and who knows? But this is the kind of stuff that some people that are lost, sad, they have mental, and they have the ability, and they keep on hearing crazy conspiracies. They do stuff like this. We don't know if this guy had anything to do with anything. But what we do know is he obviously liked conspiracy theories because he thought 5G was some kind of a government system, and he blew up a building. So I'm not putting one and one together, but there is a section of the crowd that certainly loves conspiracy theories, and it's not the Democrats. We don't talk about the conspiracy theories about 5G and all that crap. The Republicans do.
It's neo-Gnosticism. The Gnostics. There was a theme that happened in the first couple centuries of Christianity where if you hear the word heresy, it all came around Gnosticism, because what ended up happening was, as the church was spreading throughout different parts of the globe, there were people that would come to town and go, I got secret knowledge that nobody else has. And it would completely change the foundational theology, which changed a lot of stuff of how they made decisions of every little church along the way. And they had to have these big councils and discussions about, wait a minute, this is what Christianity believes and this is what it's not, after about 200 to 300 years of that happening. And so this practice of always looking for the secret this or the hidden that, it's a mental illness. It's a mental state of accepting or not accepting facts that, and last thing I'll say is, to a party that doesn't have a platform, this bomber, I'm going to say something bold here. This guy that blew up himself, and if he is a MAGA person, or these crazy guys on the Periscope that are attacking females and other things, that's a Republican now. That's what you guys all are. Because none of the Republicans who are going to go drink coffee and talk about, Chuck Grassley as being a good Republican are going to come on this scope and defend their position. They're silent, they're scared, they're ignorant, they don't know what the fuck they believe anymore, because they've fallen this Trump down this rat hole. And so the only people that are making noise are the craziest of them all.
And you have to own them all now.
You have to own them all.
You let the whole thing go. You started. You broke the thing. You drained the swamp, and into the swamp entered these creatures. And you have to own them all, because you're not going out there and saying, "Oh, I don't like that." You're allowing it to happen. So you have to own everything. And that's the problem with them, is that this is where I was saying, drawing the red line. At a certain point, I would love to say, you know what, you made a mistake, let's come back. But at what point do we just go, listen, you can't come back from this. You're a Trumpster. You're done.
You know how you do it, Ace? Yeah, you know how you do it. And I was going to get into it tonight, but we're going to wait. You get into it with a fucking monster transportation bill and an education bill and a this bill and a that bill after Warnock and Ossoff win. And then you begin to reestablish the DOJ and you move on from these people. These people do not deserve to have the bright lights of the conversation anymore. They need to go back to basics. They need to go fight with themselves in coffee shops and co-ops and wherever.
Go underground where you were. Go underground. Let that talk is always going to exist, but it needs to be underground.
We need DC statehood, as Zach said. And he's absolutely right. We need to talk to Puerto Rico and ask them if they want to be a state and then make it a state. We need to, it's time to go. We have a mandate, and that's what this whole thing from November 3rd until now, and as it goes forward, is meant to do, is for people to not know what the word mandate means. I asked my son, I was like, he's 16. I go, we have a mandate. I was like, do you know what that means? And he was like, no. And I was like, that means we get to do what we want for a while.
And the good news is, I think one thing that's going to help Joe Biden the most, which we haven't seen, I don't know how I'm going to feel, is the lack of craziness. This chaos is good. It's going to, I feel like I'm a computer person, but I know when I power cycle all my systems, I have 20 switches. You hear the bzzz, the whole. I think the country after day one is just going to go bzzz, and people are going to go, "Oh, I don't get to hear from my president doing crazy shit all the time. Okay, I kind of like this. Mm-hmm. I don't have to talk to my friends about what crazy thing Trump tweeted that starts into a political we need to go back to never talking about politics. In reality, some people don't need to talk about politics, because when they start talking about politics, they fall into the wrong group, because they've never talked about politics. They don't know how it works, and they can easily be taken advantage of. This is what happens. People got into politics. that don't know anything about politics, and they got hoodwinked.
We get to breathe.
Because I know Joe Biden's not going to be tweeting. And if he is going to tweet, it's not him. I can guarantee you Joe Biden does not know how to tweet. I don't think he knows the password. He's never going to do it.
Well, do you remember when Obama was sworn in, when he was inaugurated earlier on, they let him know that he wasn't going to get to have his BlackBerry anymore. Remember that was like a whole thing,
right?
And he abided by it. He was like, all right, and then whatever. And then Trump comes in and he's like, I'm going to have 9 cell phones at all times and they're all going to be tweeting. And and
then they get hacked because their password is like MAGA 2020.
We're going to do presidential business on campaign email addresses. After campaigning on Hillary Clinton using non-secured servers, we're going to use Yahoo email addresses to talk to foreign dignitaries.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean, I know Joe Biden knows how to tweet. I'm saying that none of Joe Biden's tweets are not going to be super professional, made by a assistant that's like
boom, someone in his press corps will be doing it. Someone
they're going to be super professional tweets.
They'll be composed by a team. It won't be Joe Biden confefe in the middle of the night and then not even saying "oops."
Yeah. So, do you think that the rumors are true that Twitter will clamp down on Trump after he leaves office? Do you think that they'll change his access?
It's an interesting question because he broke Twitter's rules by saying I'm sending the brightest, newest missiles to Syria. I believe that's threatening human life, which is supposed to be against the rules. So he's obviously gotten a lot of extra strikes because he is the president of the United States, and what he said these are official messages from the president of the United States. So yes, if he leaves office and he says, someone should execute so-and-so as a traitor, that gets the rest of us, a 3-day suspension or whatever. So,
well, I think any other place I would say definitely not, because it's a bad business decision. In reality, it is a business, and he's got 88 million users. And if you want to
at least 40 million of those are real people.
Okay, but it's still a lot. Yeah. If you want to make Parler a thing, it's not a thing now, but if Trump leaves and goes to Parler, it becomes a thing. Although interesting enough, Twitter probably doesn't mind the small competitor either. It's not actually bad for business. I would say no for normal businesses, but Jack Dorsey is a weird, I don't really care type of dude. And I would say, yeah, he's going to ban him. And he's going to be like, I'm done with this. This is pointless. This he's more negative than positive for me. I think he will be banned. They'll just get rid of it, move on. They'll take the small hit, and that's it, and just be done. And then I'm sure Donald Trump will sue them and do whatever he wants and never win, and they'll be fine with it.
It'll be interesting.
Of course, he'll be able to block users again. Remember, he was told he can't block users for political reasons.
Now, this, of course, is believing in the Constitution and the laws of our land, and not recognizing that if the Republicans were to be able to get what they want, they would overthrow our election. So we have to keep that in mind too, that they still could overthrow. I don't know how, but I don't think they're going to get the military to follow along. But who knows? Trump is good friends with North Korea. Maybe they've got something worked out, right?
I'm still waiting until he drops the bomb of pardons.
Let's talk about these pardons for a second. He's already dropped 60 of them. It's a lot of pardons.
It's been rough pardons. He's dropped people that he's pardoned people that have killed civilians, children, from Blackwater that really should have never been pardoned. Of course, he's pardoned everybody from the Mueller report, which is interesting because that he's essentially then proving that it's
all guilty
justice, because if he dangled the pardon, if they wouldn't talk and then they didn't talk and he pardoned them, that's obstruction of justice in itself. And the question is, the big one is, will he pardon his family and him? Him is I think is a different one, because I don't think he'll do it himself, because it's actually setting himself up for bad news if he did that. But his children, I'm guessing he will pardon. And my theory, my guess is he's going to find one person that is going to cause chaos when he pardons him, and I have a person, and then he'll pardon his kids. Because what Trump likes to do is he likes to control the media in chaos. He likes to control his own chaos. So he knows chaos will come in if he pardons his kids, but he needs another thing. So what do? You pardon Edward Snowden. He's going to pardon Snowden, and Snowden creates a whole bunch of chaos on both sides because both sides like Snowden and both sides hate Snowden. By the way, everybody should hate Snowden. He's a traitor, and he's probably beyond not a traitor. He's probably a mole, or he's just a double agent for either the Chinese or the Russians. Because if you know what he did, he put us in major risk. Everything that China is now doing is because of Edward Snowden. So I'm assuming he pardons Snowden, causes a bomb of controversy, and at the same time pardons his kids, kind of controlling that controversy. For himself, I would say probably not, because if he pardons himself, then he's basically, and I've heard this multiple times said, he's basically asking the U.S. government to go after him. Because if he pardons himself, then the U.S. government is going to be like, you can't pardon yourself, but they can't say you can't. They would have to go and go essentially charge him, go to the Supreme Court and say, we're charging him. This is why we need this pardon removed. So he would be begging for charges by pardoning himself.
Joe Biden is going to do everything he can to eliminate Trump from the news cycle every chance he gets. And there's several ways he can do that. And it's a lot of local hand fighting that will keep these people busy and keep them down. I mean, Trump is 24 days away from potentially being rolled up by the New York Attorney General. Like, there's things cooking, you know?
Did you guys realize that when you're pardoned, you can't plead the fifth?
Yes.
You may have said that while I was gone, Ace.
No, that was another thing.
So he pardons his kids, let's just say. He pardons himself. When Congress calls him and says, why did you promise the Ukraine? Why did you demand from the Ukraine to look into Joe Biden? He can't say, I plead the fifth, it might incriminate myself. He has to answer the question. And then if he lies in his answer, he can be charged with perjury. So it's an interesting situation that actually pardoning himself or pardoning people very close to him could actually be very, very dangerous. Not to mention, of course, you pardon someone very close to you, and they might just go to the nearest prosecutor and say, I've got a bunch of very interesting things for you to know about the president. You know, now that I'm off the hook for the stuff I did, including some of the people he's already pardoned, they very well could turn around. Now, obviously, most people, if you've been pardoned, you'd be like, well, ooh, that was close. And you would tend to be nice, but it's not a requirement.
Exactly. But I think he's going to first of all, we're looking at it as if he knows what his kids have done. So he knows what potentially they could be looked at. So if Ivanka is being questioned for stealing funds in D.C. and Jared Kushner did this, they already know what they've done that they could be looked into. And they also know as soon as Joe Biden's people come in, they're going to have all the books open and they're going to be able to see everything that was done. And if they come in there and they go, holy shit, this is even worse than we thought, they freaking stole the kitchen sink, we have no choice other than to do this. Remember, Nancy Pelosi did not want to impeach Donald Trump. She had to do it because he stepped over the line of lines.
Yeah.
So it didn't work out. She was forced into it. There could be a scenario where Joe Biden, they start looking into it and they go, wow, I mean, we can't not do anything about this. This is huge. So I guess we'll see. The question is, how do you pardon someone that hasn't been charged?
Right. And like Michael Flynn was pardoned for the things he was under investigation, charged with.
So
they can just have to write something. Well, the federal government could just charge him with another thing.
I'm assuming that he could just give him like a Nixon type of pardon, where it's basically like anything I've done.
Well, I don't know.
And I'm sure it'll come in a letter saying I need to pardon my kids because the Democrat the Democrats are coming after us. They'll never stop. This is the only way. We know what he's going to say.
I could be wrong with the Southern District of New York stuff coming, for example. Let's say he does pardon his kids. The Southern District of New York can say that doesn't help you here.
It doesn't.
Right.
And we're going to ask you to
call him in.
Yeah. It doesn't help.
And you've waived your right to the fifth at this point.
Right.
Well, they wouldn't waive their right to the fifth in the Southern District because that's a state, so their pardon is federal, so they would still be able to use it.
I guess the question really is, is it really an open-ended pardon really legal? I tend to think that when Ford pardoned Nixon, what it really was like a, okay, cut. We're just going to stop this.
Exactly.
We're going to stop this and go on with our lives. Nixon, you leave. You just stay out of politics, and we'll just call it dead. I think in reality that I don't believe a pardon like that, just open-ended. You'll never be charged with any federal crime. I mean, that can't be right. I mean, that doesn't make any sense logically. What if he had turned around the next day and sold all of his secrets to the Russians or something?
Well,
you'd have to be able to charge
during the time they were in their capacity.
Yeah.
Was
that in there?
Theoretically, he could also leave and get Mike Pence to do it.
Well, he could say what he wants in a presidential letter, and then it will have to be
like we just saw. He could say whatever he wants in a statement. It just doesn't make any. It doesn't exist. He makes stuff up. But
so we've spent a lot of time tonight talking about Donald Trump and the right, and we have to, because it's gone. I want to talk about policy and I want to continue with America Heals, but the fact is we've got to root out the cavity that's a rotten tooth in our head. And right now it's the American right. It's not a political discussion. It's a zealous fanaticism that is not reasonable, and it is groping and grappling for power any way it can find it, threatening. And this is not the first time we've seen fascism die. And this is what happens every time fascism gets put back into the box. Americans have a relationship with these movements, secret societies. The Know Nothing movement, the Know Nothing Party, lasted about 6 years. There's been other, the KKK and other secretive organizations have flourished and ebbed and flowed. Certainly, the Nixon administration was as close to pure fascism inside of the way they thought as anything we'd seen up until the Trump administration. And so, every 40 years or so, this thing gets itself together and rises back up. And here we are again. It usually lasts 5 years or so. We're coming at the end of it. Hopefully we're coming to the end of it. But the moves at the end of the chess game are always the most important. There's less pieces on the board. They matter more. And Joe Biden so far has done a great job of playing it, just being cool beyond cool and letting time pass.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing we can do until time passes. It's sort of like when you make brownies and it says 45 minutes to bake them. You want to bake them in 20 minutes by turning the oven up. It doesn't work that way. It takes 45 minutes to bake them. It takes this many days to get rid of the form.
He has been very professional, and he knows he can't run. He knows that the side that he's dealing with is extremely hot right now.
Yep.
They're torching hot. And he knows that if he throws a bomb, eventually we're going to have to start looking at Trump. He knows they're just going to blow up. He's just trying to get in there and go, I need my people in.
Yep.
And once, like I've been saying all this time, let us get into power, then we can do whatever the hell we want. Get into power first. We can't keep on kneecapping ourselves before we even get into power. Yep. So run on policies that win, keep the policies that are controversials away, get in, then govern and get things done correctly. And then when you're done, just like Obamacare, if it's a good policy, people will like it.
Yep. There's other days to run up the score and to raise your, and that could be July, that could be whatever. Yeah. But the truth of it is that we need to get through this season, and the best thing we can do is focus on the vaccine. My wife got her vaccine yesterday. Awesome. I will report she's a nurse with moms and babies, and so she got the Moderna vaccine, and her arm is extremely sore today, and she feels kind of like shit.
Oh.
But but she's okay. I mean,
Turtle one has it's got the longer. It does have a little bit more of a feeling a little sick side effects, but
but
it
she's
has
doing
a better
well.
efficacy. So.
Fully what she should expect, and it's working. And I'm, I tell her, like, you've been spiked,
Yeah. So there was a comment I wanted to. Mr. Clean said, "Interesting. Many on the left disagree with you." I don't know what that had to do with it, but
that was when we were talking about
Snowden.
The Snowden piece.
I think it was
You're not a Snowden person. Come on. Yeah. That's what I meant. Snowden's always really confusing because the left loves themselves some Snowden. And I'm like, you guys need to chill out on the Snowden because that guy is either a spy or a traitor or both. He really is. Just to keep it super short, basically, there was a fiber cable that connects China with Japan and some other countries that was in the sea. That's their communication. The United States figured out a way to tap into that fiber cable, and no one knew about this. They used this connection to get into China's nuclear weapons portion, so they can monitor to see what they were doing with their nuclear weapons.
Wow!
When they got this information, they went to Russia and said, "Let's have a nuclear pact." Russia said, "There's no point of us having a pact with the United States against having more nuclear because the third biggest nuclear power is not at the table, which is the Chinese. What would be the purpose of us doing anything with you guys while the Chinese are doing their own thing?" The U.S. told Russia, "Don't worry about the Chinese. We know what's up. And we're going to keep the communication between you guys flowing if they make changes," which is how Obama got that signature. That's how they did that order. What did Snowden do? As soon as he left the United States, he went where? China. What did he tell the Chinese? He told the Chinese exactly how we were linking into their fiber communication. Gone. And as soon as then he went to Russia. He told Russia that he told the Chinese this. The Russians then realized that the United States now no longer has a view into what's going on with Chinese nuclear warheads. And what did they do? They got rid of the agreement. Yep. That was all caused by Edward Snowden. So be careful what you go against. That guy is either a spy or a traitor or both.
And he has damaged American influence and assets around the globe.
And that's all we know that he may have told them more. But this one thing we'll never get back. We essentially now we've lost our biggest intelligence into the biggest power in the world that we had, and they had no clue we were doing it. And we lost it because of one guy that is a traitor. That's just the fact. He threw out the whole, the United States government could spy on your cell phones as a way of making it look like he is a
initial hero.
But that's a nothing compared to all the other damage that he did by going to China and telling them, Chinese government, that's the biggest. I mean, they have no for freedom of speech. He went to them and told them what we were doing, which is a traitor act. And then he went to the Russians and told them what we're doing. And one single person got rid of the nuclear, what is it called? The nuclear treaty?
The treaty.
So when the left is all about, protecting the nukes, less nukes, that one guy did more damage than anybody else has done.
And nuclear production is up since that occurrence.
And if you're the Russians, they make a valid point. Why would they make an agreement with the U.S. when the third or the first or the second biggest power, the Chinese, is not at the table? They're like, yeah, we could slow it down, but the Chinese that are right next door to us are making nuclear weapons left and right, and you guys have no in. You don't know what's happening. One guy caused that treaty to go down. So don't protect just because he did something good. You read into the actual story of what he did. He also opened up us into a lot of other things where they now know where all of our secret agents are and all kinds of other things. But this one person destroyed that agreement and went to both of our Chinese and the Russians. He's a spy. And when he gets pardoned, remember this story that he is a traitor and a spy.
To you and me.
Right.
Jeff, well, before we head out, you got any final words tonight of wisdom or watch over the next few days, week or so?
I definitely encourage people. We didn't get into it tonight because it comes up routinely. Don't take the bite on we didn't vote for Trump because we hated Trump. Look at yourself, look at your beliefs, look at our platform. And if you're a Democrat, you should be able to very quickly laugh that off and say no. I'll give you an example. 74% of Americans think abortion should be generally available or available but with limits. And only
74%.
74%, only 24% say it should not be permitted. So there's apparently 2% that don't care or didn't answer. I don't know. But the point being, that's a good belief to say I'm pro-choice. So I always vote Democrat because Donald Trump has said he's pro-life and he's defunded Planned Parenthood. So those are very simple things you can say to say, well, no, I vote Democrat because I'm a Democrat because I believe in Democrat things. Don't fall for the talking point that you just hate Trump, so you voted for anybody else. Because I would argue, as I said earlier in this broadcast, that's actually what a lot of Republicans did. They had a general negative feeling about all politics, so they voted for a non-politician who, of course, is now a politician and has done a very, very bad job at multiple things, including, I don't even know. I've stopped looking at the chart. The only thing Trump had right is I lost a lot of interest in COVID stats. I know it's horrible, and I'm still taking it extremely seriously. But we've lost now, 320,000 people or more?
We've lost one we passed the line yesterday. We've lost 1 in 1,000 Americans have died. Yeah.
Which, by the way,
the nearest number of per capita death is India, and they've lost 1 in every 9,600 people. So we are in Taiwan. They've lost 7 people total. It's 1 in 3.4 million people have died. But in the United States, in this land that likes to call itself pro-life, pro-Christian, all these pro-religious ideals, we have let this disease, because of our greed, our insufferability for getting out and feeding our gullets and living the life we feel like we need to live, forgetting public safety, forgetting public health. And 1 in 1,000 Americans have perished from this, and 32 to 33 to 3,500 people a day are dying, and we don't hear one of their names. We do if we watch CNN. They list a couple names an hour on CNN. Fair enough, but I can remember the band U2 after 9/11 parading around the globe, and when they would come to Streets Have No Name, they dropped the sheet and they would run the names of the people who died in the towers in 9/11 and the plane on 9/11, and everybody cried and watched it and thought to it. We're doing that every day. And we're not stopping the traffic because we have a heartless, ruthless president. We have a vapid, billionaire class elite structure on both sides of the political aisle. $16 billion was spent on this election. $16 billion. And it was $10 billion in the midterms election in 2018. So it's an ongoing problem that continues to rule our lives. The fact that we can't get publicly funded elections and we stop this madness of all of this capitalist elections in this country, will never have a great economy. We'll never have freedom the way we'd like it, while these politicians are able to get seriously fucking rich for lying and being part of an allegiance to a secret society that protects them when they just don't say a word.
And then getting vaccines frontline, like Marco Rubio.
Yeah. It's 341,000 dead today. And to get to what you said, which is right, we were approaching that for a while, so I'm not surprised we hit 1 in 1,000. 24 states have 1 per 1,000. And then sadly, 2 states are now easily around. I'm saying like within 100 of 2,000 have 2,000 deaths per million. So in other words, New York and New Jersey now have lost 2 people per 1,000. And that number, of course, is 2,000 per million for New York. Actually, New Jersey's worse. 2,000 in New Jersey, 2,100 in New Jersey, 1,900 in New York. And then the next states go 1,700, 1,600, 1,600, 1,600, 1,600, 1,600, 1,500, 1,400. So, you know, when I'm saying 1,500, 1,400, that's 1.5, 1.4. So per 1,000. So, I mean, we're over 1 per 1,000 in 24 states. So yeah, I mean, it's worse than 1 per 1,000 because there's so many states where it's over. And then what's really sad, honestly, what makes me just super sad about these stats is when I take a state like North Dakota. North Dakota was geographically isolated, had no real problem. South Dakota's right behind them. They're number 4 and 5. They have lost 1,661 people per million and 1,635 people per million. They've lost 1.6 people per 1,000 in states that had no reason to have any problem. They're spread out. They have no big cities. All they had to do was just wear masks and act like adults.
Yep.
And quarantine when they got it. They are now behind Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey, North and South Dakota. The red states, Euro's done the charts. It was blue states to start with because they're highly populated and coastal. Highly populated and coastal. And then the red states, I mean, there's a bar graph that moves and it shows as the case developed, like literally it was like blue states were the top 5 and then reds just run right past them.
Kristi Noem, Kim Reynolds, these governors embodied the very worst of leadership by flouting it and allowing Sturgis to happen in August.
They were proud to say,
watch it go up.
People like being free in South Dakota. Come to South Dakota. We're having an influx of business because people want to be free. And to that point, by the way, there's been all this talk about regulations, taxes, funding, blah, 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 to help our businesses, help our businesses, help our businesses. I heard somebody the other day say something profound. What you need to support your business is customers. Customers save businesses.
Yeah.
Customers. So when you can't go to McDonald's and get a burger, that hurts McDonald's worse than any of the rest of this. When people start talking about minimum wage and everything else, letting COVID spread across the country so we don't feel safe sitting in a restaurant, that's what's killing restaurants.
Yep.
It's not governors.
Yeah.
It's a failure to respond to an epidemic that is prohibiting us to go to restaurants that's killing restaurants.
And they did up the projections by April. They were supposed to be in the high 400s. Now the projections are close to 600,000 deaths. That's if we keep on. That's if we make a change.
Right.
That's on the low end. On the high end, you're looking at 700,000 to 800,000 deaths. And I can tell you, when I'm looking, I talked to Luke today. He lives in kind of a center city. He's like, there's no one here. Everybody left, which means people are traveling. And I've always said that. If you think this time is bad,
I know
Thanksgiving, people skip Thanksgiving. People don't skip Christmas and New Year's. It's going to be a mess for the next, I would say, couple of months. We're going to see major repercussions for one more month. We're going to see probably, I would say, January, you were probably going to lose over 100,000 people in 1 month. That's probably what's going to happen. I think December is at what, like 80,000 in December? You're going to lose more in January. You're going to lose a lot more in January, and then it's going to go down because February is kind of a dead month, and then it'll start slowing down because it's going to be hotter and warmer and the vaccines. But it's going to be a mess. This is another reason that Trump, all the Trumpsters think that he's going to run. He's never going to run because he's always going to be labeled as losing over 500,000 people.
He's going to go from always running to always being on the run.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
And this pandemic is going to end at one time, and the numbers are going to come in with ending numbers. And when you see the ending numbers, and you're going to go, holy crap, the United States lost 800,000 people.
Yeah.
While all the rest of the world didn't even come anywhere close. We were the worst at every single stat. Who ran during that who was the most anti-masks, anti-COVID thing. And I've always said that we're going to find out there's going to be more emails where herd immunity was the policy that wasn't told to the American citizen, and they lied to us this whole time. They said, we'll just do herd immunity, we'll lie to the public, we'll make them get in groups, we'll have them meet, we'll go against
open schools, open businesses,
infect everybody, the more the better. And we're going to find out that people like Scott Atlas, that guy's going to get criminally prosecuted. I'm surprised he already doesn't have his license removed, but that's going to happen. You have to remove his license because he had to have been briefed that masks work, and he's a doctor, and he went out there and he said masks don't work. And I'm pretty sure, Jeff, you're not a doctor, but it's kind of like the AIDS thing. Like if you tell people that, like, if you can catch AIDS by a blood transfusion and you go out there and you go, no, you can't.
Right.
You're going to lose your medical license. He didn't do anything different than that. He knew masks worked, and he went out there and pressed herd immunity without telling the public.
And I can do an Excel spreadsheet, by the way. I said there's going to be 300,000 dead by the election. I was short by about 40,000. But obviously now here it is. We're sailing past it. December 1st, we had 276,967 dead. So we've lost 65,000 in December so far.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty bad.
December still has.
Yeah.
Well, we're in one of these steep curve parts where
also, last part. Don't forget that number that you have does not include states like Florida because they lie on their numbers.
Right.
So it doesn't include Florida. And a quick tip: what Florida does is Florida does not count anybody that's not a resident of Florida. A lot of people live in Florida that are not residents of Florida. They could be from New York. If you went on vacation to Florida and you got really sick and you went to the hospital, Florida does not count you as a number. Florida also does not count people with major pre-existing conditions either. Wow. Because they say if you die of a heart attack and you have COVID, they give it to the heart attack and not the COVID.
Well, Florida's 21st.
Basically, they're a huge state, and we're probably missing another 5, 6, 10,000 people.
Florida is still, even with that, still the 21st worst state in the country and still has 1 per 1,000. So
and that tells you that they're lying because the Florida should be 21.
If you guys don't follow Euro Maestro on Twitter has several charts, and he talks about excess death by state, and that's very interesting because actually Kansas is relatively low on that chart, and other states are relatively high. So when you have high excess death, unreported death, obviously that's a sign that you're underreporting your COVID cases.
Yeah, and Florida is the biggest to that.
Well, I'm sure Florida's bad, and then I'm just going to guess North Dakota and South Dakota, after acting like it was no big deal, they're probably not doing a great job reporting it either. I mean, it's just tragic.
And the behavior isn't changing in some of those places. I talked to my father-in-law in Iowa who was invited to a church service on Christmas Eve, full church. I asked him, I said, did you wear a mask? And he kind of giggled, well, no. And then he says, well, nobody did. And I said, nobody in the whole church? You guys went up for communion? Yeah, it was a full church. We did the whole thing. I'm like, fuck, man.
That's just how many got infected there. That's not even if. That's how many.
I mean,
and my wife says churches are a big problem right now. Churches
of course they are. You go there and you sing and you talk and you. Yeah. We're not going. I mean, I don't know what. I don't want to get into that, but we're not going back inside. It was just not.
Well, I'm going to jump in real quick. I know we've all had our moments, and you asked me to wrap up. But what I've scoped about several times in the last couple of weeks is they're sometimes letting the person who doesn't want to wear a mask shop because they figure they don't want to lose that customer. It's time for the 80% of the rest of us that want to wear masks, or the 20% of us that are very interested in wearing masks, to walk up to that manager and say, why is that guy not wearing a mask? Not that guy. Don't talk to that guy. That's not your problem.
Right.
It's like a store posting no smoking and there's someone smoking. Why is that guy smoking? Well, we can't make him not smoke. Well, I'm not going to shop here while that guy's smoking. And we need to walk out the front door because what they're doing is they're letting capitalism control their policy. They have a policy that they've posted. They've told you everyone to wear a mask. That's their choice, by the way. The county either says people have to wear their mask or not. The city says they have to wear their mask or not. The store doesn't have to have a policy, but the store has chosen, because they know we want it, to post you have to wear a mask, but then they're not enforcing it when they're challenged. So it's time for all of us to walk up and say, while you're not enforcing your mask policy, I won't shop here. Walk straight out the front door. Because guess what? If the next time a guy walks in without a mask, 5 of us walk by the manager and say, we're not shopping here while you're not enforcing your policy, either take it down or enforce it, I guarantee that won't go on for more than a couple of days before suddenly, oh, well, we do require masks, sir. You either have to shop or you have to leave or wear a mask. I'm not going to. Well, we're going to call the cops because you're not allowed to stay on premises without a mask. You're criminally trespassing. Look, you think a store can't keep me from smoking in their store? You think a store can't keep me from being naked in their store? A store can keep anybody out. We all know in capitalism, they can deny service to anyone for any reason. Mm-hmm. Not only can they not only deny service, they can restrict your access to their premises. It is America, right. And private property is one of the strongest rights we all have. Whether it's a public building like a grocery store or not, they can say you may not be here. Why not? Because I don't want you here.
Yep.
And the cops can come and take you out of the building. Yep. If you don't understand that law, you should definitely learn it, because criminal trespass is a very handy law.
Now, Jeff, I'm thinking to myself as you say that we need some sort of a reporting system for this, as when folks are trying to take on an oil company and they want everybody to sort of or to sort of protest against Chick-fil-A or something like that. We were all able to organize our capitalism.
I put it on my Facebook. And I tweeted Dylan's the last time I had this situation.
Let me say this piece, because this is on top of that, and it needs to be part of the conversation. One of the things that allowed the Trumpist movement to begin in the political rally, specifically in the Trump rallies way back, was that there was a phenomenon when people were saying that he tells it like it is, right? There was a phenomenon that was happening in those rooms and in those rally halls where the loudest jackass in the back of the room was able to begin to, because I don't know, you're dealing with a different part of the brain, or you're dealing with a different motivation system, but the biggest jackass in the back of the room actually begins to derive the debate. And so he's driving capitalism when he comes into that store in the same way. He's expecting to bully the whole store, because in his world of Trumpism and macho fascist, whatever you want to call it, misogyny, he tells fucking people the way it is. I don't know who this guy is, but you know who he is, and I know who he is. We all know who he is.
I have found that's basically when they come into with no masks, they do it not because they don't want to wear a mask. They do it because they want someone to tell them to wear a mask so they can go off on them.
Yep.
Correct.
I've told a couple of people, like, hey man, mask up. We're all trying to stay safe. And I got so many people that were freaking instantly, like, whoo, right off the bat. And I realized that they're not doing that because they don't want to wear a mask. They don't care. They want to do it as a political, like, oh, I want you to tell me to wear a mask so I could tell you off, you libtard. That's their thinking.
And I come from it.
Thing. We need to start holding not the people. We need to start holding the stores accountable and go, listen, you have a policy, enforce your policy.
Or take it down.
I have to wear clothes. These are all policies that you have to abide by. I can't steal. This guy's breaking his policies. Go do something about it.
And at the bottom, I walked in here because you posted masks required.
That's
and now I come in here and there's people aren't wearing masks. So again,
there isn't a button on Twitter for that, but we need an app, or we need a recording system so that we can report it, because post Biden coming in, there's going to be a lot of these things that we're like, oh my God, let's finally fix these problems. And this is one of those fixes that I'm just done having an aggro.
What if we got caught taking a picture of a guy not wearing a mask in Dylan's, and he goes, what are you doing? And you say, I'm tweeting Dylan's management because they have a policy about masks that they're not enforcing. And then he goes, are you telling me to wear a mask? No, that's not my job. I'm enforcing Dylan's corporate that they're not enforcing their posted policy. Well, fuck their posted policy. Well, obviously, it's not about you and me, man. Mm-hmm. And I was the middle manager for a long time. That was my main job. I was 14 years middle manager in warehousing. That person who's telling them to wear a mask is not the problem. That person has been told enforce this policy. But if they push back, we'll let them in. That's what they're being told. Don't get in a fight about it. Just tell them. So that's what they're doing. So the truth is the management isn't saying enforce it. And if they don't leave, call the cops.
Yeah.
And so their choices, in my mind, don't say you require it. Say masks encouraged, or post the county rule. Must wear a mask in public, county law, blah, blah, blah. But don't say we as a store enforce it. It's really that simple. And if you are going to say you enforce it, which of course they all do on all their websites, we enforce masks. We require masks. Well, it's not required if you don't enforce it. I mean, I was a manager for a long time. You're not required to sign your orders if people don't sign them every day and you don't do anything about it. That's not a requirement. That's a guideline. That's a suggestion.
When you go to Disneyland, when you go to Disneyland, man, it's all about fun, and everybody comes there and they spend their money on a huge ticket, but it's nothing but rules and nothing but lines and nothing but imposed order because you came into their space. They make it nice and they make people sort of not fight it through marketing and techniques and all sorts of stuff. But the fundamental thing is that you got no rights when you're at Disney. None.
And it's just like the first places that banned smoking. There was a bar in my college town that banned smoking in one part of their bar. They had it all closed, separate part. It was one of those bars that has like 5 parts. And they just took one part and said, this part is not smoking, no smoking. And guess what? It was full all the time. And that was a capitalist solution. And I'm fine with a capitalist solution. Dillon's either decides they're going to allow people without masks or not. And then I shop where either it's required or it's not. I'm not telling them they have to enforce masks. I'm just saying, don't tell me you do require masks and then you don't require masks. And obviously, even not calling the cops, you can just look at the guy and go, well, sir, we're not going to ring you out.
This also gets into
mask, we won't ring you out.
This also gets into scofflaw philosophy as well. We do what we want and we don't do what we don't want because we're true Americans.
Yeah, I believe in capitalism, and this store has a policy.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, and I appreciate everyone being with us tonight. This is just the hard slog of healing this country and looking at the shit that we're in right now and recognizing that we're 24 days away from change. We've got to get this vaccine in place. We've got to wear masks. I mean, we're in a fight. It's a throwdown, So last words from everybody.
I would say we got we have to look at what's we'll have a scope, and next time we should talk about the vaccine rollout, which is an epic failure already. And I don't know why we need to point fingers where everybody's failing, because it's a big deal. They're already failing miserably. People are getting vaccines that are not supposed to get vaccines. There's line skipping, all that. Trump gets all the praise for creating a vaccine which he had nothing to do with, and they would have created it regardless. With or without, it's just our money. He used our money so definitely need to get some vaccine talk. And I would say, let's see what happens next week. This week, it's going to be pardon craziness is happening.
Yes. Jeff.
CBS says 85% of Americans think immigrants brought to this country illegally as children should be able to stay. 85% of all Americans, and independents line up evenly. Democrats say 95%, Republicans say 75%. So another situation where Democrats are almost unanimously agree with DACA, and somehow only 73% of Republicans do. So another reason to vote Democrat.
Yeah. So, and my piece is just hang tough, everybody. Make sure you're getting some exercise. Make sure you are, and I mean that, try to get a walk in every day. If you're not doing anything, the psychology of what Trump and the Republicans are doing right now is supposed to wear you down. So feed your body, get some sleep, turn off the craziness if you can. I know it's fun to tune in and watch some of these guys at night, but they're imploding right now, and you really don't want to be near it because it won't be good and it'll continue to bite back. So I'd just like to say thanks to everybody who's a friend and colleague on this medium. And I think, these conversations are critical. Jeff, Ace, thanks for hanging in there tonight and bringing what you brought. It means a lot to me that we're able to do this. And I know we do other scopes at different times, and that's awesome too. But to have a conversation like this, I think it means a lot to a lot of folks. So let's keep doing it and keep healing.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Guys,
All
See
right.
you, everybody.
see you.